By evening, Marco returned carrying a large bag containing the medicine Leo had requested, along with a mask. "Mr. Evans, will this work?" Inside the room, Marco pulled the mask from his jacket and handed it to Leo. Leo took it. It was close to what he had asked for, a demon mask similar to Nyx's, but with a twist. This one was more theatrical, crafted with the intricate mechanisms of a stage magician's changing mask. Leo pressed the mask to his face. His entire aura shifted instantly, transforming him into something akin to a reaper standing at the gates of hell. "Not bad." A low, raspy voice drifted out from behind the mask, making Marco shudder involuntarily. If he didn't know the man standing before him was Leo Evans, he would have turned and ran by now. "It's about time." Leo removed the mask and tucked it inside his coat. He turned to Marco. "Cover for me. Don't let anyone into my room. Just say I'm asleep." "Marco nadith. Signaling okay." Leo tidied up a bit before flipping out the window. After navigating a few alleyways, he arrived at the roadside and looked around. Honk honk. A car horn blared. Leo spotted a black sedan not far away and walked straight toward it. As soon as he got in, he saw Kane in the driver's seat and Ethan Sia in the passenger seat. "What exactly are you planning?" Ethan couldn't hold back as soon as Leo shut the door. "Can you explain the plan first? We're flying blind here. What's the rush? I'm here, aren't I? What is there to be worried about? Is it possible that because you're here, we're worried?" Leo was momentarily speechless, then asked, "Did you guys bring the masks I asked for?" "We brought them, but..." "Good enough. Drive." "Where to?" "The M.O. Group Estate." Leo's tone turned chilling. "Tonight, our operation has only one objective, and that is to wipe out the M.O. family. Leave no dogs, no chickens, not even a single ant alive." Silence filled the car. After a long pause, click, the door locks popped open. "You, get out." Kane and Ethan pointed at Leo simultaneously, their faces expressionless. Leo looked bewildered. "What did I do? Are you crazy?" Ethan snapped, "Leaving aside whether the three of us can wipe out the M.O. family, aren't you afraid they'll suspect you're still alive if we pull this off? There's only three of us. If one person slips through the net and spreads the news, suspicion will fall on you immediately. Besides Nyx, who else is capable of something like this? Even if they don't suspect you're alive, the dust hasn't even settled from the battle at the Gilded Tower. If the M.O. family gets wiped out now, do you really want to scare every faction in NYC to death?" Leo chuckled, unconcerned. "Relax, I know what I'm doing." Ethan and Kane looked entirely unconvinced. Seeing this, Leo had no choice but to walk them through his plan. "Simply put, through tonight's action, I want to send a message to the major powers in NYC, especially the Four Pillars. That message is, a second Nyx has appeared, and this one is even more dangerous because they know absolutely nothing about me, and I can use this identity to get some things done." Hearing Leo's explanation, Ethan and Kane fell into deep thought. After a while, Ethan asked Kane, "What do you think?" Kane frowned. "If this identity can be successfully established, I think the pros outweigh the cons. If successful, Leo would have three identities. Leo Evans, who died of exhaustion at the Gilded Tower. Dr. Rain, the skilled physician from Eastside Ridge in North Point. And a second Nyx, a powerhouse capable of terrifying every faction. Any of these three identities could play a massive role depending on how they were used. But to achieve this, the most important prerequisite was that everyone in NYC subconsciously believed Leo Evans was dead." Thinking of this, shock filled Ethan and Kane's eyes. When did this guy's brain get so sharp? Had he calculated all of this way back then? Little did they know, Leo had just been relying on his undying pack skill and got carried away in the heat of the moment. "In that case, let's do it," Ethan decided decisively. Kane slammed on the gas, heading straight for the M.O. estate. As for why Leo chose the M.O. family, it was simple. He had been eyeing them for a long time. Back at the Gilded Tower, he hadn't hidden his hostility toward them. If the M.O. family was wiped out, everyone's first thought would be Leo Evans. Of course, that was assuming Leo was still alive. Since Leo was dead, he could act with zero restraint. Leo had even chosen a name for this third identity, similar to Nyx. Wraith. After tonight, with the M.O. family destroyed, the name Wraith would shake all of NYC. Meanwhile, in a basement somewhere in NYC, the lights were blindingly bright. Various experimental instruments and chemical solutions filled the room. A naked man lying on a bed slowly opened his eyes. The harsh light made him frown. He moved his lips, finding his throat and mouth incredibly dry. It was unbearable. "Where is this?" The man looked around, his voice raspy. Water. He wanted water, but felt completely powerless. Getting out of bed was a struggle. Oh, you're awake. Accompanied by the voice, a figure in a white lab coat and glasses appeared in the man's line of sight. Who are you? The man asked, his throat parched. Who I am isn't important. What's important is, do you know who you are? Henry helped the man sit up and poured him a glass of water. The man took the water, downed it in one gulp, and then gasped for air, observing his surroundings. Then, he began to think about Henry's question. Who am I? The man frowned, a splitting headache assaulting him. I can't remember. It hurts. Seeing this, Henry spoke softly. Don't resist. He picked up a syringe from the side and injected a solution into the man's neck. This will ease your pain and help you remember some things. Sure enough, after the injection, the pain on the man's face gradually faded, replaced by a look of recollection. Henry put his hands in his pockets, took out a voice recorder, and asked, I'm asking you, do you remember who you are? Tell me, what is your name? The man gasped for breath, his brow furrowed tight. After a long silence, a few words slowly spilled from his lips. I remember. My name is Preston Sheen. Preston Sheen. My name is Preston Sheen. The man frowned, muttering the phrase over and over. After a moment, his pupils began to dilate, losing their focus. It was as if he had lost his mind. Ugh. Aya! The man screamed in agony. Who am I? Who the hell am I? Henry Yin frowned. Just as he was about to act, the man's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed onto the bed, fainting dead away. Henry sighed deeply, then spoke into the voice recorder in his hand. Subject Preston Sheen, third recovery experiment. The subject successfully regained sanity for a brief moment, but fainted again upon recalling his name. Further observation is required to see if subsequent recovery is possible. After finishing the log, Henry turned off the recorder and let out a long breath. At least there was some progress. Ever since Henry learned that the existence of these experimental subjects stemmed from Dr. Quentin Mark's gene serum, he had begun researching whether it was possible to restore them to normal humans. Preston Sheen was his test subject. Back in Viridian, Leland Vance had been cornered by Julian Reed and Principal Chapman. Although Leland escaped, Preston Sheen had been left behind. Principal Chapman handed Preston over to Sterling, who then passed him to Henry. After tucking Preston back into bed and organizing the area, Henry walked out of the basement, looking exhausted. As soon as the door opened, Henry froze. He adjusted his glasses and looked at the visitor. Is something wrong? Nothing. Just came to check on your progress, Sterling said with a smile. How is it? Is recovery possible? Henry shook his head. I'm not sure, but right now, there is hope. Whether this succeeds depends on the third-generation gene serum the professor developed before he died, and his concept for the panacea. If I can develop the panacea, maybe all of this can be reversed. Henry's eyes held an unprecedented seriousness and determination. Sterling watched him silently, as if seeing the shadow of Dr. Quentin Marks. The professor had been obsessed with creating the panacea, which led to his end. And now Henry, as a student, was showing that same obsession. He didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Pausing for a moment, Sterling said, Director Shang has been rescued. The Four Pillars' attention on you should have diverted quite a bit. That's good. Henry sighed in relief. Not because the pressure on him had lessened, but because Director Shang was safe. Director Shang's predicament was largely due to him, so Henry had felt guilty. Caldwell's Crossing is safe, and this basement is safer still, so you can rest easy, Sterling chuckled softly. To put it bluntly, even if Caldwell's Crossing were wiped out, this basement wouldn't be affected in the slightest. Henry nodded gently. Thank you. No need. It's what I should do. Sterling turned to leave. Looking at Sterling's back, Henry suddenly spoke. The professor once said he had a friend. Sterling stopped. Henry continued. The professor said that when he was on the verge of giving up, it was that friend who supported him without hesitation, allowing him to see hope for the panacea. He said if he ever had the chance, he wanted to tell that friend face to face. Thank you. Sterling stood with his back to Henry, saying nothing. After a long silence, he took a step forward and slowly uttered 3 words. You're welcome. This is what you guys call masks. In a black sedan near the Missouri estate in NYC, Leo looked at the masks in his companion's hands, utterly speechless. Kane was holding a mask of a knockoff Captain America. Ethan was holding a mask of a pink piglet. Both of them looked awkward. Your wife picked these out for us, Ethan grumbled. Did we have a choice to refuse? Leo's mouth twitched. Tonight was his debut as Wraith. He wanted dominance. He wanted terror. He wanted ruthless efficiency. And You two pull out a knockoff cap and a pink piglet? Who are you planning to intimidate with those? Leo instantly wanted to send these two idiots home. They were an embarrassment. Look at mine. Leo pulled out his demon mask like a kid showing off a new toy. It's a million times cooler than that junk you have. Leo looked down on them with disdain. Unexpectedly, Kane and Ethan just glanced at it and spoke expressionlessly. Ethan, I think it's worse than the knockoff cap. Kane, I agree. Worse than the pink piglet. Now, stubborn ducks. Forget it. We're here. Let's just do this. Leo looked helpless as he started assigning roles. We rush in. The three of us will just go quack, quack, slash, slash. I'll handle the slash, slash. You guys handle the quack, quack. Kane and Ethan flipped Leo off simultaneously. You think you're the only capable one? If you're so awesome, why did you call us? Leo handles the killing. We'll keep watch and make sure no one slips through the net, Ethan said. Kane nodded. The three of them put on their masks and strode out of the car toward the M.O. estate. The Burrito King, Pretty Boy Pistol, and Captain Edgeblade. The Unholy Trinity's first collective operation. Target, the M.O. group. Leave no survivors. Meanwhile, inside the M.O. estate, the patriarch of the M.O. family happened to be holding a family meeting. The content was roughly about keeping their gray zone industries low profile until the heat died down. For example, the Gilded Tower locations across NYC had closed their top floors. Sigh. Playing it this safe is costing us too much, someone lamented. Most of the family's funds come from those gray industries. With them closed, we're taking a huge hit. The M.O. patriarch comforted them. We have no choice. Harrison Shang made a promise in front of everyone. We can't make him lose face. Besides, it's not just us. The other factions are in the same boat. If everyone takes a hit, it's like no one took a hit. Look on the bright side. To the side, Miles M.O. was playing on his phone indifferently. Ever since Leo had traumatized him at the Gideon estate, he hadn't dared to leave the house. Now that Leo was dead, he looked radiant, practically wanting to dance to celebrate. Thinking of Leo's death, the corners of Miles M.O.'s mouth couldn't stop rising. So what if Leo was awesome? He was dead, and Miles M.O. was still alive. I, Miles M.O., am better than you, Leo Evans. Miles M.O.'s ego was currently inflating to massive proportions. In short, keep your heads down for a while, the M.O. patriarch said calmly. At the latest, 6 months. At the earliest, 2 or 3 months. This whole thing should blow over by then. Also, NYC isn't peaceful lately. The night of the battle at the Gilded Tower, quite a few subsidiary families were wiped out. Although the M.O. family isn't a subsidiary, we have to be careful. Who knows if we might get inexplicably wiped out one day. So, today's meeting ends H. Boom. Before the M.O. patriarch could finish his sentence, a massive explosion rocked the building, immediately followed by a shout. Patriarch, enemy attack. Everyone seated jumped up instantly, faces full of confusion. What the hell? Enemy attack? Just like that, the M.O. family hadn't provoked anyone recently. Why were they suddenly under attack? At the same time, they all turned their gazes to the M.O. patriarch. Did this guy curse them? He just finished speaking, and someone kicked down the door? Quick, go check it out. Several people ran out in a panic. Protecting the family was the priority. Miles M.O. ran out with the crowd. He wanted to see who had the guts to attack the M.O. family. When they ran outside, they saw the main gate of the Missouri estate had already been blown open. A figure wearing a demon mask stood at the entrance, hands in pockets, head cocked to the side, looking at them with a playful gaze. Everyone froze. Just one person? Who are you? The M.O. patriarch narrowed his eyes. Why come to my M.O. family? What do you want? Ha ha ha. Leo let out a villainous laugh, his voice rasping. The M.O. family needs to die. Arrogant. Miles M.O. shouted. Get him. Take him down. I want to see why he thinks he can be so cocky. Leo glanced at him. Miles M.O. looked somewhat familiar. Then he remembered. Wasn't this the young master who sneaked away back at the Gideon estate? He belongs to the M.O. family? I forgot. Leo thought to himself. Following Miles M.O.'s order, a dozen men rushed toward Leo. Disdain flashed in Leo's eyes. His figure blurred, accompanied by several screams. The dozen men hit the ground instantly, a thin line of blood appearing on each of their necks. Leo returned to his original spot in front of the gate, blood dripping from the dagger in his hand. The M.O. family members were stunned by this display. They all took a step back, no one daring to move forward. Yo, are you a variant? The M.O. patriarch asked, his voice trembling. A variant? I'm not that trash, Leo sneered. I am. Wraith. As in a vengeful spirit. Leo didn't waste any more time. He attacked again. On a distant high-rise, Kane set up his sniper rifle. Watching Leo fight through the scope, he couldn't help but click his tongue. This guy is too brutal. He preferred the Leo back in Ethelberg who got scared by a toy gun. That Leo was much cuter than this one, and more human. TSK, you can't run over there. Kane saw someone trying to quietly climb over a wall to escape. He pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang! Right between the eyes. I have screen time this season too, Kane declared righteously. In just a short time, blood flowed like a river inside the M.O. estate. Countless people were dead. The M.O. patriarch trembled all over. Watching the people in front of him fall one by one, he hurriedly shouted to Miles M.O. Miles, run. Run out the back door. I'll buy you time. Seeing Miles M.O. not reacting, the patriarch realized he was scared stiff. Miles M.O. The patriarch's shout pulled Miles back from his trance. Run. Miles M.O. froze for a second, then turned and ran toward the back door without looking back. Leo noticed this, but didn't bother chasing. Because of the back door, there was a murderous pink piglet waiting. They have a sniper. Stop thinking about escaping. Fight to the death. The M.O. patriarch roared, grabbing a gun and leading the charge. He had to buy time for Miles's escape. Seeing this, Leo casually raised his gun. Bang! A bullet struck the center of the M.O. patriarch's forehead. He fell to the ground. Trying to play the tragic hero, Leo muttered softly, people might think I'm the villain here. With the death of the M.O. patriarch, the estate fell completely silent after 2 minutes. Is it over? Ethan, wearing the pink piglet mask, walked slowly from the direction of the back door. He looked at the corpses on the ground, shaking his head and clicking his tongue. But there was no sympathy in his eyes. These faction families in NYC deserved death. This place was completely rotten. Perhaps before the Manhattan incident with the BSO around, NYC still had a few pure spots. But now, it was entirely the domain of the major factions and the powerful. Unlike the situation in Viridian, where the people were oppressed and exploited, eventually rising up under Leo's provocation, NYC had no people, or rather, very few here were ordinary folks just trying to make a living. In NYC, if you threw a brick, 9 out of 10 people you hit belonged to a syndicate family. That was why Leo dared to act so recklessly here. If it were Ethelberg, Leo might have had reservations. Did anyone slip out the back? Leo asked. Are you questioning my skills? Ethan sounded displeased. 18 people tried to escape through the back. All dealt with. That M.O. family young master saw me and was so scared he couldn't walk. I took him out with one knife. Leo nodded. Then he and Ethan searched the estate to ensure there were no survivors. Ethan suddenly felt like he really was a villain. 10 minutes later, the M.O. family was officially declared extinct. Time to retreat, right? Ethan asked. Retreat. Leo paused. What are you talking about? The nightlife has just begun. Ethan froze. What are you planning now? To get my name out there, of course. The M.O. family is dead. Who's going to spread my name if they're all corpses? Leo grinned, then grabbed the corpse of the M.O. patriarch. The next part is the real thrill. The M.O. family was just the appetizer. Seeing this, Ethan had a bad premonition. Sure enough, what Leo said next almost made him curse out loud. I'm going to hang the M.O. patriarch's body at the main gate of the Shang dynasty estate to declare war on them. Are you insane? Ethan cursed directly. That's the 4 pillars. You just got killed by them once, and you want to fight them again. Who said anything about fighting? I'm just hanging a body. Do you think the people at the Shang estate are blind? They'll just let you casually hang a corpse. It's fine. We just quietly take out the guards on duty. Leo bared his teeth in a brilliant smile. Relax, I know what I'm doing. NYC, inside the Virtue Clinic. Sebastian Westcott exercised while curiously eyeing Dr. Rain's room. Strange. Why was he hiding his room all day today? Marco noticed this and whispered. Dr. Rain is a bit tired these past few days, so he went to sleep early. Keep it down, don't wake him. Hearing this, the guards immediately lowered their voices, and Sebastian didn't dare breathe too loudly. While Marco breathed a sigh of relief, he also began to worry. Based on his understanding of Leo, the later he came back, the bigger the trouble. Mr. Evans has been out for so long and specifically asked me to cover for him. Just how big a mess is he making? Marco thought to himself. Meanwhile, the unholy trinity was en route to the Shang dynasty estate. In the trunk of the black sedan lay the body of the M.O. patriarch. We need to be fast. Action as soon as we stop. I'll handle the guards. Ethan, Kane, you two handle hoisting the body. Make sure the body is facing the main gate of the Shang estate, steady and prominent. Guarantee they get scared to death the moment they open the door tomorrow morning. Leo excitedly laid out his plan. Ethan and Kane felt increasingly uneasy. Ethan looked at Kane and whispered, "Wait, are the good guys, right?" Kane paused, then nodded slowly. "Should be. Then why do I feel like these are villain moves?" "Maybe. It's the person." Kane looked at Leo in the rearview mirror, at a loss for words. When he heard Leo's follow-up plan, he was dumbfounded. This was going for the jugular. "Hey, will this really work?" Kane asked weakly. "If something goes wrong, I feel like we can't handle the heat." He didn't dare imagine what kind of chaos NYC would descend into tomorrow morning. "What are you afraid of? NYC is already like this. If it gets a little messy, maybe that's a good thing." Leo sat in the back, starting his psychological manipulation. Before long, the three arrived near the Shang estate. After exchanging glances, Leo put on his mask first and said in a low voice, "Let's work." The three got out of the car in unison, division of labor clear. Leo was responsible for taking out all the perimeter guards. Ethan and Kane were responsible for stringing up the guy. Originally, Leo planned to use cheap shot to knock them out, but on second thought, that move might expose him. Might as well just kill them. His identity now was Wraith. Wraith had no feelings. "What? You ask about Leo Evans? What does the killing Wraith have to do with Leo Evans? Besides, didn't I accumulate a lot of merit saving people as Dr. Rain? They say saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. I must have built a 700-story pagoda by now, right? So what am I afraid of?" Leo went on a rampage, killing silently. He even got caught up in a moment and wanted to sneak inside to assassinate Harrison Shang directly. Fortunately, he controlled himself. It wasn't time yet. If Leo guessed correctly, Harrison Shang should possess strength equal to or greater than Nick's. It was just that gaining this strength required paying a price, so they always disguised themselves. Before figuring that out, Leo tried not to act rashly. Of course tried. If pushed, he'd fight with his one cheap life. "I have a system. I can't beat you, variants. If I win, I deserve it. If I lose, the system is trash. Nothing to do with me." Just as Leo finished off the last guard, Ethan and Kane finished their part and signaled for Leo to retreat. Leo pulled a pre-written note from his pocket and hung it around the MO Patriarch's neck. Then, after a brief thought, Leo took out 2 grenades from his pocket and rigged a simple trap. Once someone cut the body down, the pins would pull and the grenades would drop. Mission accomplished, retreat. Leo waved his hand. Kane slammed the gas, and the three sped away. Leo was extremely satisfied with tonight's operation, especially Kane as a driver, very competent. Saved him a taxi fare. After dropping Leo off near the clinic, the three went their separate ways. "Bye. Call us next time for another exciting mission." Leo waved goodbye with a grin. The two flipped Leo off without hesitation. "If this blows up later, just don't say we're your partners," Ethan said helplessly. "Partners?" Leo sounded unhappy, correcting him emphatically. "Accomplices." Ethan rolled his eyes and played dead. Kane floored the gas, desperate to get away from Leo. The three parted ways. Or rather, they parted ways with Leo. Meanwhile, at Caldwell's Crossing, Conrad Caldwell was just about to find Sterling to discuss some matters when he froze at the door. "What's going on?" In the courtyard, many Caldwell family members were lined up. At the front of the line, a man in sunglasses sat on a chair, reading the fortunes of the family members. "Yes, sir, your forehead is dark. You might have a bloody disaster coming soon." "Huh, what do I do? I haven't lived enough yet." "Don't be nervous. A bloody disaster won't necessarily take your life, but if you want to avoid suffering, it's best to spend money to avoid calamity." "How do I spend money to avoid it?" "Here, I have consecrated charms. $5,000 apiece. Sleep with one, and your bloody disaster will be gone." "For real? You're not scamming me, right?" "How could I scam you? I am the dignified North Point prophet. I sell these for $20,000 apiece in North Point. If I didn't feel a connection with you, I wouldn't even sell it to you." "This? All right, I'll buy it." The sunglasses man smiled, accepted the money, and solemnly handed the charm to the man. "Remember, stick it on well when you sleep, or you'll be in big trouble," the sunglasses man warned solemnly. Bam! Conrad suddenly appeared, slamming his hand heavily on the table in front of the sunglasses man, startling everyone. "Where are your brains? You believe this big swindler?" Conrad looked at his people with disappointment, worrying about their IQs. He felt pathetic. How did he have such a group of subordinates? Buying consecrated charms for $5,000? Usually you guys can't even bear to spend $50 on phone credit. "Get lost, all of you." Under Conrad's roar, the people lining up for fortune-telling vanished without a trace. Conrad turned his head, gritting his teeth as he looked at the sunglasses man, speaking word by word. "Shane Quill, you got some nerve. Scamming people right in my home now. The sunglasses man, addressed as Shane Quill, laughed awkwardly. What, Shane Quill? Patriarch Caldwell, you've mistaken me for someone else, right? I'm just a passing fortune teller. If there's nothing else, I'll be going. Saying that, Shane Quill packed his things, preparing to bolt. However, Conrad grabbed him by the collar, growling low. Trying to run? Back when I went in North Point, you bastard scammed me out of every cent I had. I've kept that grudge in my heart. I was thinking of finding you to settle the score someday, but I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to my door. Shane's mouth twitched, smiling sheepishly. Patriarch Caldwell, you really have the wrong person. I'm not Shane Quill. Heh, even if you turned to ash, I'd recognize that face. Conrad pulled out a gun and pressed it against Shane's forehead. Didn't you tell my fortune back then? Said I'd have a great fortune in NYC. I'm asking you, where's my fortune? If you can't say, I'll use this gun to give you a fortune. Conrad's tone was threatening. Thinking of how he was deceived by this man in North Point, his anger flared. He wanted to shoot him dead right there. Oh well. Shane laughed awkwardly. It's just that the time hasn't come yet. The fortune hasn't arrived. Is that so? Then tell me, when will that fortune arrive? This, heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. Click. Conrad disengaged the safety on the gun. Actually, a little can be revealed. Under Conrad's threat, Shane said helplessly, Patriarch Caldwell, good things take time. Why don't you wait a bit longer? Wait? How long do you want me to wait? Conrad sneered. Shane extended a finger, pointed at the sky, and slowly uttered a phrase. Wait for the wind to turn. Conrad looked at him expressionlessly. After a long moment, he slowly said, You better wait for this day next year and think about who will visit your grave. With that, he prepared to pull the trigger. Shane squeezed his eyes shut and screamed, Don't. Just then, a voice rang out. All right, have you two played enough? Both looked toward the sound. Sterling was standing nearby, looking at the scene helplessly. Sterling, Shane shouted, as if seeing a savior. Save me quickly. This old fogey wants to kill me. Sterling sighed. If you hadn't gone around scamming people back then, would you be in this situation today? Now look at you. A rat crossing the street, everyone shouting to beat it. You couldn't stay in North Point anymore. Happy now? Hearing Sterling's words, Shane's face turned red. What kind of talk is that? It was a consensual transaction. Can you call that scamming? Besides, you, Sterling, scammed plenty of people in North Point too. Sterling laughed. Then go back to North Point and ask them, would they prefer to come looking for trouble with me? Or with you? Shane moved his lips, but the words wouldn't come out. Indeed, even in North Point, few dared to provoke Sterling. But Shane, he couldn't survive in North Point anymore. Sterling, you call this guy here? Conrad asked unhappily. I have some grudges with him. It's fine, I just need to use him for a while, Sterling smiled. After I'm done, kill him or skin him. Do whatever you want. Hearing Sterling's words, Shane's heart went cold. Conrad smiled. Good. You said it. He released Shane's collar. Shane immediately ran towards Sterling. Sterling, you big liar. Didn't you say you talked to Conrad and he wouldn't trouble me? Shane cursed in a low voice. Sterling glanced at him indifferently. Isn't it settled now? Shane's mouth twitched. He stared at Sterling's face for a while, his expression changing slightly, muttering, I knew you wouldn't do anything humane. You deserve that dead man face of yours. What did you say? Nothing. I said you look handsome. Shane hugged his backpack and continued. I want to find that kid named Leo like you said. Ha ha ha. If you hadn't given me his info, I really couldn't have fooled him. I bluff him good, especially when I called out his name. His expression was wonderful. Sterling rolled his eyes helplessly. You still talk too much. What kind of talk is that? Shane was unhappy. My family has relied on our mouths to walk the world for 2 generations. Okay. Others have 3 generations. You only have 2. To put it bluntly, you and your dad are just big swindlers. My dad was a big swindler. I am not, Shane argued. His skills weren't even half of mine. He was pure scamming. Sterling shook his head with a bitter smile. Fine. But you better pay back the money you scammed from the Caldwell family later, or I might not be able to protect you. He pointed at the menacing Conrad in the distance. Shane followed his gaze, met Conrad's eyes, and shivered. With you here, he shouldn't make a move on me, right? Shane asked carefully. Well, guess. Who the hell did you learn that bad habit from? Guessing all the time. Learned it from an old friend. As Sterling spoke, he led Shane into the room and closed the door. Then, from a cabinet, he took out the box containing the mithril pistol. Is this the thing? Shane examined the box curiously, looking astonished. This is the key to opening that secret hoard. Yes, this is it. Sterling nodded. I still have business in NYC. Help me take this to Master Silas. Take it to Master Silas. You want me to go back to North Point? Shane immediately objected. I just got out of there, and now you want me to go back? Are you playing me? Sterling said calmly. Help me send it back, and I'll settle the debts you owe in North Point. Really? No takebacks. Shane grabbed the box, as if afraid Sterling would regret it. Honestly, I really don't want to see that Master Silas guy. Why? You owe him money too? No, but recently there's a young man by his side. Seems to be named Julian or something. Shane sighed. That young man is also an extraordinary character. Rivals you when you were young. Sterling smiled and said softly, him. Perhaps he's even more formidable than I was in my youth. More formidable than you? Really? Shane was slightly surprised. It was the first time he had heard Sterling evaluate someone like that. Even you can't beat him. Sterling shook his head. Of course that's not what I mean. He still lacks some experience, but once he matures, it's hard to say. Shane nodded in agreement. True. Even that Master Silas, who acts like he's second only to God, was tamed by him. When I was in North Point, I walked around him. Always felt like if I wasn't careful, I'd get calculated. That's why I say, you brainy types have dirty hearts. Sterling smiled helplessly. You can say that in front of me. I'm too lazy to hold it against you. If that kid heard you, he might put you on a list. Young people nowadays hold grudges like crazy. Shane shrugged, indicating he didn't care. He had traveled north and south for so many years, scammed so many people, caused so much trouble. Even if Julian Reed wanted revenge, he'd have to wait in line. Right, especially that guy Leo Evans. Sterling suddenly remembered something and added, he's the pettiest. You'd better not offend him. Scam him out of a few bucks, and he'll remember you for a lifetime. Shane's mouth twitched, his expression becoming unnatural. Sterling frowned. You didn't. Cough, cough. Shane said awkwardly. Not a big deal. Just accepted a small IOU from him. IOU? How much? T250,000. Sterling sighed. I asked you to do a job, not to use the opportunity for profit. Shane scratched his head. If there's money to be made and you don't take it, aren't you a bastard? Suit yourself. Anyway, you just need to help me deliver the box. Sterling waved his hand, signaling Shane could leave. I'm just leaving like this? Shane held the box, confused. Such an important thing, and you carelessly hand it to me to take away? Aren't you afraid I'll embezzle that massive secret hoard? Sterling brewed his tea, speaking lightly. Although you are greedy, you aren't stupid. You know this isn't something you can swallow. Besides, if you really had the ability to keep the secret hoard for yourself, that's your skill. I'd even admire you. After all, currently, only Master Silas can open the box. How would you, Shane Quill, take it for yourself? Shane pouted. Talking to you is boring. Gone. Shane hugged the box and opened the door, running straight into Adrian, who was coming to find Sterling. Ouch. Young man, watch where you're going. Shane almost fell over. Adrian, dressed in black with a hood, hands in his pockets, said speechlessly, I was standing outside the door the whole time. I didn't move. You were the one rushing. Hey, you kid. Shane stared at Adrian's face, then changed his tone. No wonder your fortune looks so rough. Young man, not bowing your head is a good thing, but will make you suffer losses. A piece of advice. Bow when you should bow. Admit mistakes when you should admit mistakes. That way, your path forward will be smoother. After leaving this meaningful remark, Shane hugged the box and left straight away. Adrian frowned, looking back at Shane's retreating figure, silent for a long time. Then he stepped into Sterling's room and asked, What's up with that guy? Talking nonsense. Sterling happened to have brewed 2 cups of tea. He handed one to Adrian and chuckled. An old friend. What? He said my fortune is rough. Anyway, just a bunch of inexplicable words. Is that so? He's known as a big swindler in North Point, scamming everywhere. And he's a very greedy person? I figured. He didn't look like a decent person. Sterling sipped his tea and nodded, but then said, However, I suggest you take his words seriously. Adrian looked confused. Why? Didn't you say he's a big swindler? Can I still trust his words? How to put this? Just treat it as metaphysics. Sterling smiled. Don't think I'm superstitious. Historically, Zhuge Liang was way more metaphysical than this. And Shane Quill's ancestors actually have a bit of a connection to Zhuge Liang. Adrian looked skeptical. As a hacker, he believed in metaphysics the least. Code is justice. If it runs, it runs. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There is no third option. Still can't monitor the 4 pillars? Sterling asked. Adrian shook his head. All the surveillance in NYC is under my control, but the 4 pillars seem to have guarded against this long ago. They removed all the cameras around their estates, so I can't fully grasp their movements. Sterling nodded. It doesn't matter. They won't stay inside forever. They'll come out eventually. Is there anything else? Adrian nodded. Yes. Just now, the M.O. family was wiped out. The M.O. family. Sterling frowned. By whom? Only 3 people, all wearing masks, identities unknown. One of them possesses terrifying strength. I suspect it's Nix. Nix? Sterling slowly shook his head. Nix wouldn't show his face at a time like this. And besides Nix, the only one with that strength and a grudge against the M.O. family is Leo Evans. Leo Evans. Adrian was startled. Isn't he dead? Just a trick to fake death and escape. I played that game plenty back in the day. Sterling said lightly. And then? Just wiped out the M.O. family. Then, they took the M.O. patriarch's body. Didn't know where they went, but, judging by the direction, it should be the Shang estate. Hearing this, Sterling's eyes flickered, deducing Leo's plan in his mind. Soon, he roughly figured out what Leo wanted to do. Really reckless, Sterling said with a headache, yet helplessly. Can't he just stay quiet for a few days? Adrian blinked, saying nothing. He only reported. What to do was up to Sterling. Ignore this matter for now. Sterling pondered for a moment. Clear their surveillance traces. Don't let anyone track them. Also, try to contact Nix for me. I have something to discuss with him. Contact Nix? Adrian frowned. Deleting traces isn't hard, but finding Nix might take some time. It's fine, just do it. Okay, I'll get to work. Adrian stood up and left, heading back to his small cabin. Sterling sat alone on the sofa, pinching the bridge of his nose, sighing deeply. What an unstable element. Early the next morning, the main gate of the Shang dynasty estate slowly opened. Hard work, brother. Time to change shifts. A guard stretched, ready to switch with his colleague who had been on duty the previous night. When he saw the scene before him clearly, he froze, then screamed at the top of his lungs. Patriarch! Something huge happened. The guards outside the Shang estate had all collapsed, lifeless, dead as can be. Directly above the main gate, the body of the M.O. patriarch hung from a rope in the center, looking incredibly gruesome. Onlookers and spies from various factions had already gathered around, but no one dared to come forward to inspect closely, because stepping forward meant invading the Shang estate's territory. Harrison Shang rushed over with his men upon hearing the news. Seeing the M.O. patriarch's body, his brow furrowed. Patriarch, we just got the news. The M.O. family was wiped out last night. The butler whispered from the side. With a face of steel, Harrison stepped forward and ripped off the note taped to the M.O. patriarch's chest. It read, "The 4 pillars need to die." The signature was a single word. Wraith. Wraith. Harrison's face was dark. The moment he saw this word, he thought of Nix. But Nix had no reason to do this, and it wasn't his style. Who dared to declare war on the 4 pillars so brazenly? Harrison growled low. Investigate. Find out where this wraith came from. The butler swallowed hard. He knew from Harrison's behavior that he was truly angry. Seeing Harrison turn to leave, the butler quickly ordered the guards to lower the body, then scrambled to follow Harrison. Patriarch, I feel something's wrong with this. Could David Evans have done it? David Evans? He doesn't have the strength to wipe out the M.O. family silently overnight. Then could it be? What do you want to say? Harrison looked at the butler with sharp eyes. I know who you want to name. The only one with a grudge against the M.O. family and that kind of strength is Leo Evans. But don't forget, he's dead. I personally aimed a gun at his heart. Boom! Before Harrison could finish, an explosion occurred at the main gate. The massive noise drew everyone's gaze. They only heard a guard scream miserably. Patriarch, there were explosives on the body. Harrison's face turned even uglier. If the previous act was a threat, this was a slap in the face. A thorough, humiliating slap. How is this different from squatting at the Shang estate's gate and taking a dump? Bastard. Harrison gritted his teeth. Don't let me find out who you are. Pass my order. Whatever the cost, drag this person out. Contact Westcott, Osborne, and Granger. This isn't just my problem. Someone is provoking the 4 pillars. The butler nodded rapidly. Yes, I'll do it right away. What happened at the Shang estate spread throughout NYC in a very short time. The impact almost overshadowed Leo's battle at the Gilded Tower. Right now, if you sat in any breakfast diner in NYC, the 2 names you'd hear most were Leo Evans and Wraith. Hey, did you hear about the Shang estate? Duh, how could I not know about such big news? What happened? I don't know, tell me. You don't know this? The 4 pillars got provoked. The M.O. family was wiped out overnight. The patriarch's body was hung at the Shang estate's gate. I heard they even left a bomb on the corpse. That badass? Who did it? A guy named Wraith. Don't know his identity, but one thing is certain. NYC is getting more and more dangerous. Exactly. It hasn't been long since the battle at the Gilded Tower. Leo Evans just died, and now a Wraith pops up. Too scary. In my opinion, maybe David Evans faked an identity to avenge Leo. At a nearby table, Leo, disguised as Dr. Rain, was casually eating pork buns, listening to the gossip around him. To hear this news, he didn't even let Sebastian buy breakfast. He came out to eat himself. It moved Sebastian to near tears, thinking Dr. Rain had finally developed some humanity. Leo rolled his eyes at that, too lazy to explain. Latest news. The Shang dynasty has united with the other 3 major families. They're preparing to drag that wraith out at any cost. With the 4 families united, as long as that person is still in NYC, they absolutely can't escape. Come on, opening the pool. Let's see how many days it takes the 4 pillars to catch wraith. I bet 3 days. After all, it's the 4 pillars. I bet 10 days. Conservative. So conservative? Are you guys playing around? I bet 1 day. All in. You're the one playing around. I bet tonight. All in. If I lose, I'll go beg on the streets. I'm all in too. Leo stared blankly. Was making money this easy now? Everyone going all in? Are NYC people this aggressive? And the guy betting tonight. I admire your boldness, but you might really have to go beg. Leo's mouth was stuffed with buns, watching the scene like a bystander. Suddenly, he realized a serious problem. He was a good citizen. How could he turn a blind eye to gambling happening right beside him? So he decisively took out his phone and dialed the inspection unit. Hello, I'd like to report illegal gambling here. Before long, people from the inspection unit arrived and took everyone away. It had to be said, under Director Jensen's leadership, this group's efficiency was top-notch. Leo gave a mental thumbs up. Packing 2 portions of buns to go, Leo strolled toward the clinic, not panicking in the least. Forget 3 days. As long as Leo didn't pop his head out, even if they had 3 years, they wouldn't trace it back to him. Meanwhile, under Harrison Shang's organization, the 4 Pillars Patriarch meeting convened once again. Unlike the one at Silas Westcott's place, this meeting was more formal and serious. Harrison Shang, Silas Westcott, and Otis Osborne were all present. However, there was still one empty seat. No one sat there. Harrison's face was dark. What exactly does Gregory Granger want to do? Silas and Otis shook their heads. The spies they sent to the Granger family had also gone silent. Forget it. Ignore it. It's the same with just the 3 of us. Just as Harrison was about to start the meeting, a voice rang out. Sorry, uncles, I'm late. The door was pushed open. Gareth Granger's figure slowly appeared before the 3 of them. Today's update time will be very late. I'll give you 3 or 4 chapters in the early morning. And hey, don't rush me on what I owe. Listen to me, put it on the tab first. Mwah. Gareth. Harrison frowned upon seeing the arrival. Where's Gregory? He shouldn't be sending you to participate in a meeting of this level. In the past, they wouldn't have said much about Gareth representing Gregory. But now things were different. They needed to know what Gregory Granger was plotting. Why had he seemingly evaporated from the face of the earth? Seeing this, Gareth knew things were tricky today. If he didn't handle it well, he feared it would lead to the other 3 families collectively targeting the Granger family. Uncles, I am truly very sorry. Gareth spoke with sincerity. I won't hide it from you anymore. You must have noticed something strange about the Grangers recently. Whether it was Uncle Silas's previous meeting or the action against Leo Evans, the Granger family has remained silent. Actually, there are difficulties involved. Difficulties? Otis sneered. Then tell us, what kind of difficulties? 3 sharp gazes fixed on Gareth simultaneously, putting him under immense pressure. Gareth took a deep breath and spoke word by word. My father, the patriarch of the Granger family, is critically ill. He has been in a vegetative state for a long time. Hearing this, the brows of Harrison and the others furrowed. Gregory Granger became a vegetable? Are you kidding? A healthy man. How could he suddenly succumb to such an illness? Seeing they didn't believe him, Gareth sighed. He took a file from his bag and handed it to the 3. This is the diagnosis from Director Marsh of NYC Hospital. You know his diagnoses. They are absolutely never fake. The 3 took the file and examined it carefully. It clearly stated that Gregory Granger had been diagnosed as being in a persistent vegetative state a month ago. At the bottom was Director Marsh's seal. Harrison and the others looked at the file, their expressions shifting. They knew Director Marsh of NYC Hospital. He was someone absolutely unbiased regarding medicine. He would rather die than forge a diagnosis. So, the possibility of this diagnosis being fake was very low. Gareth continued. To avoid causing panic and to preserve the Granger family status, this news has been locked down and not revealed. So, uncles, please understand. I came today with an apology. I'm sorry for keeping this from you for so long. Gareth bowed his head deeply. Harrison hesitated. He suddenly thought of what Sterling had said at the Gilded Tower. Gregory isn't unwilling to appear, but unable to appear. Could it refer to this? Gregory is in a coma, which means currently the Granger family is under your control. Harrison's gaze was like a knife, staring into Gareth's eyes. That's right. Although my ability isn't enough, I am working hard, striving to fully take over the family soon. Harrison and the others exchanged glances. Then Silas said, Gareth, how could you not tell us such an important thing? We three and your father are like brothers. If you had told us earlier, we definitely would have helped you. How about this? After the meeting, take us to your home to see Gregory. If the situation is really troublesome, our three families can spare some resources for you. How's that sound? Hearing this, Gareth cursed inwardly. Old foxes. Sounding so nice, but weren't they just trying to verify the truth? If they found out Gregory really was a vegetable, the three of them would probably hold another meeting afterward to discuss how to carve up the Granger family. Uncle Silas, you're too kind. But the doctor said my father needs quiet rest right now. Why don't you visit in a few days? For now, let's have the meeting first. After all, there are more important matters, aren't there? Harrison stared tightly at Gareth. After a long while, he slowly said, Sit. Gareth secretly breathed a sigh of relief, knowing he had passed this hurdle. Although this meeting was to discuss Wraith, it was also meant to pressure the Grangers. If Gareth hadn't come, the agenda would likely have added an item, taking necessary measures against the Granger family. After Gareth sat down, Harrison slowly spoke. I believe you should have heard the news. Slap. He placed the note retrieved from the M.O. Patriarch's body on the table. First, do you have any thoughts on this person calling themselves Wraith? Otis looked at the note. After pondering for a moment, he said, to have the strength to wipe out the M.O. family overnight and dare to target the Four Pillars. Honestly, the first person I thought of was Leo Evans. But he's dead, Silas said calmly. So it must be someone else. The key question is this Wraith a person or a faction? Gareth suddenly spoke up. The signature is only the character Wraith, soul. It doesn't imply that Wraith is just one person. What if this Wraith is actually Sterling's mysterious force, the new century? Hearing this, the others frowned. Silas was the first to speak. The new century doesn't have that strength. They attacked my home before. I know their combat power. Are you sure that was the new century's full power? Gareth said quickly. Don't forget, that's Sterling. No one can predict his trump cards. How can you be sure he didn't intentionally expose only part of the new century's strength back, then to make us drop our guard? Silas was rendered speechless. Indeed, if the opponent was Sterling, it was worth considering deeply. This speculation is indeed possible. Otis nodded. Also, Sterling's target has always been us, the Four Pillars. He'd love to destroy us all. Harrison tapped the table lightly. In other words, if this Wraith is a faction, it's very likely Sterling's new century. But what if this Wraith is one person? One person wiped out the M.O. family. Silas chuckled. Then I can only think of Nyx. No, you forgot someone. Harrison's tone was grave. Before the Manhattan incident, the #1 assassin, the current ghost. Saying this, he took out a file and displayed it to everyone. I investigated President Morgan and found something very interesting. He was Dr. Quinn Mark's teacher, and Dr. Marks had a junior fellow student named Zachary Miller. This Zachary Miller is the current ghost. Harrison scanned the crowd, speaking plainly. If it's him, he also has the strength to wipe out the M.O. family. Zachary Miller? Silas picked up the file, reading carefully, puzzled. Why didn't we find this information before? Especially his relationship with Dr. Marks. I find it strange, too. Harrison shook his head. Logically, we shouldn't have missed such important information back then. But the weird thing is, back then we couldn't find a trace of Miller. Yet now, his information is clear as ice floating on water. You mean someone intentionally blocked his information back then? Otis frowned. Who has such capability that even the intelligence agents of the Four Pillars came up empty? Unclear. But someone with that kind of tech must be a top-tier computer expert, with skills surpassing the hackers our Four Pillars possess, Harrison said gravely. For a moment, all four fell silent. The situation was getting increasingly complex. First Wraith, then the suddenly exposed Zachary Miller, and now a hacker. The four felt a chill, as if an invisible, giant net was slowly wrapping around them. Things are getting tricky. They began to realize the severity of the problem. If this was a conspiracy, who was the mastermind? If this was a chess game, who was the player, and who were the pieces? One table, for people, each with their own thoughts. After a long while, Harrison spoke first. Regardless, we can be certain that whether it's the new Century or Miller, they are our enemies. And that hacker, if I guess correctly, should be one of Sterling's people. If Miller was exposed by that hacker intentionally at this time, then it must be connected to Sterling. And the new Century is also Sterling's force. So, I think the target we need to focus on is really just one person. That is, Sterling. Hearing this, Silas's heart stirred. Only he knew that the mithril pistol box used to open the North Point hoard had likely fallen into Sterling's hands. He was worrying about how to get it back. Now, he could leverage this momentum. So he nodded. I agree. No matter what, Sterling can't be left alone anymore. This time, with the power of 4 families, we besiege Sterling. Otis fell silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. I agree. The 3 immediately looked at Gareth. Representing the Granger family, he naturally needed to voice his opinion. Gareth also nodded. I agree too. His goal was simple. Whatever it took, shift Harrison and the others' attention away from the Granger family. Besieging Sterling was a good choice. At this moment, Otis suddenly asked a fatal question. Besieging Sterling. Even if our 4 families act together, each family has to send a lot of people. By my estimate, we'd each have to send at least 70% of our combat power to be sure of taking Sterling down. Then the problem is, what if that bastard David Evans brings people to hit our rear? Hearing this, the other 3 fell silent. Right. Forgot about that bastard. Fuck. Silas held it in for a while, before cursing. Anyone could guess that David Evans, that scumbag, would definitely come to steal their base. He'd smell it coming. Sending 70% of their power meant leaving 30% to fight David Evans. Fight my ass. Then, what if each family sends 50%? Gareth asked tentatively. Although the probability of capturing Sterling drops, it prevents David Evans from hitting our homes. 50% combat power is enough to hold off David. Harrison shook his head decisively. No, either we don't act, or if we act, we must ensure we capture Sterling. Then 60%. Silas frowned. Leave 40% to guard the house. Plus the combat power of those subsidiary families. Even if David Evans brings Director Jensen, it's enough to resist. Everyone weighed it silently, and found this was the only way. In that case, prepare individually for the next 2 days. Confirm Sterling's location. Once everything is ready, we start the operation. Harrison said darkly, if we drag this on, there will be more variables. I'm afraid we won't even get the chance to strike. We'll use this opportunity to prepare openly. Gather the combat power of the subsidiary families. Publicly claim its preparation to hunt down Wraith, but in reality, our true target is Sterling. The other 3 nodded, having no objection. Gareth, your Granger family won't have problems, right? Harrison stared tightly at Gareth. Don't let the Granger family play disappearing acts when the time comes. That wouldn't be a small matter. Gareth smiled bitterly. Rest assured, Uncle Harrison, I will definitely follow the plan. Harrison nodded. Then that's it. Meeting adjourned. With that, the 3 besides Harrison stood up and walked out. Harrison sat in his chair, watching them leave, his eyes dark and unreadable. Meanwhile, Caldwell's Crossing. Sterling and Conrad sat on stone stools, playing Go. Conrad had already lost 10 games, but this old guy was stubborn. Knowing he wasn't Sterling's match, he kept losing and kept fighting. At this moment, Adrian walked over from the distance and looked at Sterling. I've unsealed Miller's information, as you asked. Good work. Sterling played casually, nodding. Then he asked, did you contact Nix? No. Adrian sighed. That guy seems to be hiding. Hard to deal with. Then forget it. Help me contact Leo Evans. Say I have something to discuss with him. Leo Evans. Conrad was startled. Isn't he dead? Sterling pursed his lips, too lazy to explain. He didn't mention Leo's situation, but looked at Conrad suddenly. Old Conrad. Dared to play something exciting? Conrad's mouth twitched. I'm old. Then you have to play even more. If you don't play now, you won't be able to play when you're in an urn. What exactly do you want to do? Sterling calmly placed a white stone and slowly said, if nothing unexpected happens, within 3 days, Caldwell's Crossing will be surrounded by the 4 pillars. What did you say? Conrad jumped up in fright. Don't panic, aren't I here? Sterling quickly comforted him, telling him to sit down. He continued, the 4 pillars know I'm here. They're coming for me. In my plan, with David Evans around, they won't dare use too many people. At most 60% of their combat power, maybe even 50%. Depends on what Harrison thinks. But they overlooked the most important point, or rather, person. That is Leo Evans. Thinking of this, Sterling suddenly laughed. when they think victory is in their grasp, only to discover their own homes have been raided. And the person raiding them is the dead Leo Evans. By then, how wonderful will their expressions be? Don't you want to appreciate that, old Conrad? Hearing Sterling's words, Conrad sat dumbfounded. He couldn't understand what the hell Sterling was talking about. Why were they suddenly besieging him? Why stealing bases? He wasn't on the same channel at all. Couldn't keep up with the conversation. I say, my brain isn't as good as yours. Can you explain it to me? Conrad felt mentally exhausted. Why would the four pillars suddenly target you? Why? Is it strange for the four pillars to target me? Sterling found it funny. I'm their enemy. Of course they want to kill me quickly. You know about what happened at the Shang estate this morning, right? Conrad frowned. That Wraith is your man? No. Sterling shook his head. I just went with the flow. I used Wraith's appearance and actions to make Harrison and the others misunderstand something. From start to finish, all I did was have Adrian release Miller's information. Just this point is enough to make a suspicious guy like Harrison shift his gaze to me, and thus sprout the idea of attacking me. As long as he wants to attack me, think from another perspective. If I were Harrison, how would I formulate a plan to deal with Sterling? Once you figure that out, everything else is easy to predict. Sterling pointed to a black stone Conrad had placed long ago. Just like that piece you played. All the white stones I played had one purpose. To make you place a stone there. As long as you place a stone there, you'll be led by the nose by me for the rest of the game. Same logic. As long as Harrison develops killing intent toward me, he has already lost this game. Conrad stared dumbfounded at that black stone, then looked at the whole board, his heart full of confusion. I played there and I lost. What did I lose? Why the hell can't I see it? Adrian leaned in for a look, then nodded. Indeed, you lost. Conrad. Sterling was one thing, but you're here to show off too? Cough. Adrian was already a 9-dan and go during his freshman year. Sterling saw Conrad's dissatisfaction and continued. By the way, it only took him 6 months to go from beginner to 9-dan. Just didn't get officially certified, but the skill is definitely there. Adrian nodded. Those certifications are too troublesome. Couldn't be bothered. Conrad was stunned. So of the 3 people present, he was the only one with a bad brain. No, these 2 in front of him were freaks. Wait, if the 4 pillars besiege you, what about my Caldwell's Crossing? Conrad soudainement sans cette danger. We can't withstand their attack. Well, I have my ways when the time comes. Sterling chuckled. Old Conrad, we're grasshoppers on the same rope now. If I'm finished, do you think the 4 pillars will let you go? Conrad's mouth twitched. Bad news. He boarded a pirate ship. Conrad felt a chill in his heart. His Caldwell's Crossing had always been neutral, provoking no one, living a good life. How did it suddenly become the center of the storm? But it was too late to say anything now. The day Sterling arrived at Caldwell's Crossing, escape was impossible. Only take it one step at a time. Inside the Virtue Clinic. Achoo! Leo sneezed and frowned. Who was scheming against him? No, it must be Ava missing me. Leo pinched his nose, looking with disgust at Sebastian Westcott, who was drinking medicine not far away. He couldn't help but admire the guy. Even after several days, Leo still hadn't adapted to the medicine's disgusting smell. Yet Sebastian could now drink it without changing his expression, no force-feeding required. Simply terrifying. He felt if this guy kept it up, he'd achieve great things. Little did he know, Sebastian's body had improved countless times over the past few days due to long-term exercise and medicinal conditioning. He was disciplined, like he'd been injected with chicken blood. Sebastian drank the medicine in one gulp. The adoring expressions of the surrounding guards made the corners of his mouth rise uncontrollably, because he could tell this adoration was genuine, not the fake flattery of the past. So he was very happy. Leo sighed secretly. If he hadn't been born in the Westcott family, maybe Sebastian would have had a happier life. Pity. He and the Westcott family were enemies. There was no other possibility. Thinking of this, Leo clicked his tongue. Would a melodramatic soap opera plot happen later? I kill Silas Westcott, and then Sebastian hates me to the bone, seeks revenge, discovers I'm actually Dr. Rain, and finally breaks down and commits suicide. TSK, TSK, TSK. Leo shook his head, lamenting that if it really came to that soap opera plot, young Master Westcott's life would be too tragic. Just then, Leo's phone vibrated. A stranger sent him a message. Come to Caldwell's Crossing tonight. Sterling wants to see you. Seeing this sentence, Leo raised an eyebrow. Sterling? Seeing that guy was never a good thing. But, perfect, I have some things to ask him too. Leo replied with a single word in all caps. Stop. The other party sent a question mark. Leo. Unsubscribing, don't you get it? The other party seemed silent. After a long while, a message came. Tonight at 9. Be there or be square. Leo muttered, so boring. He shoved the phone into his pocket, then looked at Sebastian. Young Master Westcott, time to buy lunch. I am Stuyvesant. You got it. I'm going. Sebastian ran out excitedly to buy lunch, thoroughly trained into Leo's shape. NYC, the Granger Foundation estate. Gareth returned to the family and entered a basement. In the dim space, on a stone bed, Gregory Granger lay quietly, his hair incredibly white. Gareth watched silently, murmuring, Father, if you don't wake up soon, Harrison Shong is going to make a move. I will try my best to stall them. The day you wake up is the moment our Granger family stands at the peak. With that, Gareth turned and left, leaving Gregory lying lonely in the dark space. When Gareth Granger emerged from the secure bunker, a man had been waiting at the door for quite some time. Young Master, as per your instructions, our forces are in position to encircle Sterling, the man reported. Gareth glanced at him indifferently. What percentage of our combat power have you deployed? 50%. Not enough. Gareth cut him off sharply. The agreement at the meeting was 60%, but we must send 70%. During the siege on Leo Evans, the other 3 pillars suffered heavy losses while we, the Granger Foundation, didn't send a single person. That looks suspicious. Therefore, this time we must exert more effort. Only in this way can we gradually dispel Harrison Shong's suspicion. Our goal in this operation against Sterling is to alleviate the doubts of the other 3 families. We don't know when Father will wake up, and we cannot afford any accidents at this critical juncture. The subordinate was stunned and couldn't help but ask, but young Master, isn't sending 70% too risky? If David Evans brings everyone to hit our home base, we won't be able to stop them. Gareth looked at him and said coolly, recall President Morgan. With him here, if David Evans comes, he'll just be walking to his death. Besides, more than anyone else, he doesn't want anything to happen to my father. With that, Gareth walked away alone. Time shifted to evening. Inside the Virtue Clinic, Marco sat alone at the counter, a look of worry in his eyes. How am I the only one left? Leo Evans had gone to Caldwell's Crossing to meet Sterling. Sebastian Westcott had been suddenly recalled to the Westcott estate by Silas, taking all his guards with him. Before leaving, Sebastian had intended to leave a few guards to protect Marco, but Marco had refused. What a joke. With Mr. Reed, Leo, gone, what danger could this clinic possibly face? Clack, clack, clack. The sound of boots clicking against the floor rang out. Marco looked up to see a tall, slender figure appearing at the clinic door. Quinn. Marco stood up in surprise. What are you doing here? Quinn frowned and waved her phone. Didn't you say you were bored alone in the shop and wanted to take me out for barbecue? Marco was stunned. But you didn't reply to my message. I just happened to be hungry and wanted to eat. So I came to find you, Quinn interrupted. What? Not eating anymore. Eating. Of course, we're eating. Marco said hurriedly. Wait a second. Let me close up. I know a really good barbecue joint nearby. He moved quickly, turning off the lights and pulling the gate shut in one smooth motion, as if afraid Quinn would run away. Quinn watched this scene, waiting while asking curiously, by the way, why are you alone in the shop? Where is he? She was asking about Leo. Marco's movements paused, and he laughed awkwardly. He went out for some business, so he's not in. What business? You can't even tell me. I can't. Quinn paused, then nodded. Fine. I didn't particularly want to know anyway. For a moment, both fell silent. Marco kept his hands busy, but internally he worried if Quinn was angry because he wouldn't tell her about Leo. Quinn, meanwhile, watched Marco silently. She didn't even know why she had run over here to find him. Originally, she thought Marco messaging her every day was annoying and wanted to tell him face-to-face to stop. But for some reason, when she saw Marco lying on the counterboard out of his mind, and the light that flashed in his eyes when he saw her, Quinn suddenly felt a strange sensation. So, the words of rejection she had planned to say turned into agreeing to barbecue. Quinn felt she must be crazy to say something like that. She wasn't even hungry. While Quinn was having mixed feelings, Marco had already packed up and locked the main door. He left a window unlocked for Leo. Leo always climbed back in through the window anyway. Since Leo, despite being the boss, had zero self-awareness, the key to the clinic's front door had probably been tossed into a sewer somewhere ages ago. Quinn, let's go. Quinn stared blankly at Marco, then tossed him the car keys. You drive? Marco caught the keys and grinned. You got it. The red sedan sped off, heading toward the barbecue restaurant. On the other side of the city, Sebastian Westcott had returned to his family estate and was alone in a room with his father, Silas Westcott. Father, why did you call me back so urgently? Silas looked at his son with calm eyes and asked, Sebastian, you stayed at Dr. Rain's clinic for so long. How do you feel? Sebastian nodded. Great, father. My body is strong now. I could do 30 or 40 push-ups in a row. Is that so? That's wonderful. Does that mean your illness is completely cured? I don't know about that, but Dr. Rain says it's mostly healed. As long as I maintain this, my health will keep improving. Sebastian flashed his white teeth in a grin. Father, I will definitely become a qualified heir to the family. I won't let you down. Hearing this, a trace of hesitation flashed in Silas's eyes, but calm was quickly restored. Sebastian didn't notice that the hand Silas held behind his back was trembling slightly, as if he couldn't control it. Sebastian, let me ask you a question. Silas stepped closer to his son, speaking word by word. If one day I were dying, would you be willing to use your life to save me? Sebastian was stunned. Father, what do you mean by that? I'm asking you, would you be willing? Of course I would. You're my father. You gave me life and raised me. Before Sebastian could finish, he felt his neck being clamped by a large hand. The force was so great he couldn't breathe. He looked at Silas in disbelief. Silas's eyes, at some unknown point, had turned completely black, like an endless abyss. Sebastian, give me your blood. Silas's voice became incredibly hoarse. I need your blood. Sebastian's pupils dilated. He didn't understand why his father had suddenly become like this. But in his heart, he knew clearly that the person in front of him was not the father he knew. Let go of me. Sebastian's face turned red. He was on the verge of suffocation. He struggled desperately, but Silas's hand was like a mountain, unmoving. A moment later, Sebastian fainted. Thud! Silas released his hand, and Sebastian collapsed to the floor with a heavy sound. The blackness in Silas's pupils slowly faded, returning to normal human eyes. Huh. He gasped for air, looking at his hands and the unconscious Sebastian on the floor. Damn nix! Silas cursed under his breath, then looked at Sebastian and murmured, I'm sorry, Sebastian. I really didn't want to do this. But your father really has no time left. Evening, Caldwell's Crossing. Leo Evans, wearing the guise of Dr. Rain, arrived at the foot of the mountain. This was his first time at Caldwell's Crossing. He looked up, observing the terrain with curiosity. Most of the powerful families in Ethelberg City were entrenched within the urban center. Only the Caldwell family had made their home in these remote outskirts. TSK. Sterling really isn't a good person. Leo shook his head and sighed. These people were living peacefully away from the world, and Sterling had to drag them into the water. Truly inhuman behavior. Before even meeting him, Leo was already mentally criticizing Sterling. Is there no elevator or cable car? Leo looked around and frowned. Do I have to climb up myself? He searched carefully, but found no other transportation. He could only rely on his legs. Fisk, even with my stamina, if it were Sebastian, that guy would be lucky to make it halfway. Are the people in the Caldwell family sick in the head? Do they have to climb a mountain every time they go out? Or do they just never leave? What do they eat? Takeout? If I were a delivery driver and got an order for the top of this mountain, I'd cancel the order and eat the food right here at the base. Leo muttered to himself as he climbed. However, his speed was fast, and before long, the peak was faintly visible. At the main gate of the Caldwell estate, a guard saw Leo's figure and frowned. Hey, am I seeing things? Did someone just climb up from the bottom? Let me see. Damn, it's true. I don't know who it is, but it's definitely not one of us. Nonsense. Only someone in our family with a screw loose would climb up from the bottom when there's an elevator in the back. I'll go ask. A lot of people have been coming by lately. Better check before we accidentally engage in friendly fire. A guard stepped forward and shouted down at Leo. Who goes there? Leo looked up, glanced at him, and said grumpily, Tell Sterling the person he invited has arrived. The guard heard this and quickly said, Wait a moment. He immediately made a call, whispered a few sentences, and then hung up. Dr. Rain, right? This way, please. He led Leo into the Caldwell residence, speaking with admiration. Your physical fitness is really good. You climbed up from the foot of the mountain without even panting. If it were us, we'd be exhausted just getting halfway. Leo was stunned. What? You guys don't climb the mountain usually? Correct. The guard said matter-of-factly. We have a private elevator in the back. Everyone familiar with Caldwell's Crossing knows this. Even the delivery drivers who come here often know. I was just wondering who would climb up from the bottom in the middle of the night. It must be your first time here, Dr. Rain. Leo's mouth twitched, and he remained silent. That bastard Sterling. He definitely withheld that information on purpose. What a bag of bad water. Leo cursed Sterling internally again. Guided by the guard, Leo arrived at the door of a conference room. Knock, knock, knock. Patriarch, Mr. Rain is here. Soon, Conrad Caldwell's voice came from inside. Let him in. The guard stepped aside, gesturing for Leo to enter. Leo turned the handle and pushed the door open gently. The first thing he saw was a large square table. 3 people sat at the table: Sterling, Conrad Caldwell, and Adrian. Sterling saw the visitor and glanced at the wall clock. Exactly 9 o'clock. Right on time. Sterling looked at Leo and smiled. Though, this face of yours isn't as pleasing to the eye as your original one. Adrian tilted his head and waved at Leo as a greeting. Conrad scrutinized Leo carefully. He had heard rumors for a long time, but this was the first time they had truly met. Ordinary. That was Conrad's first impression. But he knew that often, such people were the most dangerous. Leo walked over and sat in the remaining chair, agreeing with Sterling. I also think my original look is more handsome. So what did you call me here for? Sterling smiled. Of course I have something. Something big. Adrian just said that the 4 Pillars started releasing news today, gathering combat power to prepare for the capture of the Wraith. What's your take on this? Leo rolled his eyes. My take? What does it have to do with me? Are you certain the 4 Pillars won't trace it back to you? What are you talking about? I don't understand. Seeing Leo playing dumb, Sterling smiled helplessly. Fine, suit yourself. That part isn't important. What is important is that if my deduction is correct, the 4 Pillars appear to be targeting you, but in reality, that manpower is prepared for me. Leo continued to deny everything. Targeting me? Aren't they targeting the Wraith? I have nothing to do with the Wraith. Hearing this, Sterling felt a wave of mental exhaustion. Was there a need to pretend? Who in this room didn't know he was the Wraith? Fine, I'll speak plainly. Sterling exhaled a long breath and said decisively, in a few days, the 4 Pillars will make a move on me. I need you to take David Evans and the others to destroy the Granger Foundation while they are distracted. Gregory Granger is about to wake up. Sterling enunciated each word clearly. If we wait until he wakes up, it will be too late. Gregory Granger? The patriarch of the Granger family? Leo asked, puzzled. What do you mean, wake up? You should know that Harrison Shong and the others are no longer normal humans, right? Sterling explained patiently. Harrison Shong, Otis Osborne, and Silas Westcott made a deal with Nyx. Seeking immortality, they have been drinking Nyx's blood for a long time. I'm afraid there isn't much of their own human blood left in their bodies. The consequence of doing this is that they will become like Nyx, but different. They will completely lose their rationality and might even be controlled by Nyx. Unless they exchange the blood of Nyx out of their bodies by drinking the blood of their direct descendants, their end won't be good. After Sterling finished speaking, not only Leo, but Conrad also showed a shocked expression. This was the first time he had heard such news. What blood? What immortality? Sterling had never mentioned these things to him. Where does this guy Sterling get so many secrets while staying in Caldwell's Crossing all the time? Conrad wondered secretly. Leo suddenly asked, then what does this have to do with Gregory Granger? Is he the same as them? No, different. Sterling shook his head. Nyx is President Morgan. He works for Gregory Granger. Gregory knows the consequences of drinking Morgan's blood, so he wouldn't do that. In the conference room, Conrad couldn't help but ask, then what exactly is the situation with Gregory Granger? According to you, if he didn't drink Nyx's blood, why would he fall into a slumber? Sterling's expression gradually became solemn. Regarding this matter, I asked Henry Yen. He told me of a possibility. That is, Gregory chose a more extreme way to transform. No, or to use Nyx's words, to evolve. Sterling recalled the analysis he and Henry made in the lab and continued. We speculate that after President Morgan consumed the asset and became Nyx, he has been cooperating with Gregory's research. They discovered the effects of drinking Nyx's blood, so they arranged for Nyx to make deals with the 3 patriarchs. Using immortality as an irresistible temptation, they lured them into drinking Nyx's blood, and from there, things spiraled out of control. At the same time, Gregory used Nyx's blood to conceive an even crazier idea. The reason President Morgan became Nyx is ultimately because he drank the asset's blood, evolving into a creature superior to the asset. Therefore, Nyx's blood has a natural suppressive effect on the asset. What if Gregory used this suppression to continuously absorb the blood of assets? Sterling scanned the group and spoke slowly. This is the principle of quantitative change leading to qualitative change. The reason Nyx exchanged his blood for assets with the 3 patriarchs wasn't for himself, but for Gregory. They extract the most important essence from that blood and inject it into Gregory's body. Once it reaches a certain point, They will use the blood of his direct lineage to flush out Nix's blood, removing the suppression. If the blood of one asset turned Morgan into Nix, what about 10? Or 100? Sterling's words echoed in the conference room. Conrad listened, swallowing hard with difficulty. He felt he had never heard such a bizarre story. No, perhaps this wasn't just a story. Although it was speculation, it was Sterling's speculation. Without being 90% sure, Sterling would never have said it. Is Gregory confident? He dares to do such a massive thing. Conrad couldn't help but say, can he really maintain his sanity? If this doesn't go according to his plan, who knows what kind of monster will be created? Leo also clicked his tongue. He didn't expect Nix, in such a complex web of relationships, to merely act as a blood production machine. Going this far, did Gregory save Nix's entire family or something? Whether Gregory wakes up sane or not, he will be an incredibly powerful monster, Sterling said decisively. That is beyond doubt. Therefore, I'm creating this opportunity to destroy him and the entire Granger Foundation before he wakes up. Leo, I believe you understand the importance of this matter. What do you say? Sterling looked at Leo with burning eyes, speaking word by word. I've thought it over, and you are the most suitable candidate to kill Gregory Granger. When the time comes, David Evans and Director Jensen, along with my people, will all take action. But only with you there will I feel at ease. After speaking, he looked at Leo silently, waiting for his answer. Leo stared at the tabletop and asked slowly, You're drawing all the fire? Can you get away? Of course. I am Sterling. Sterling smiled confidently. After a long silence, Leo asked again, Answer me one question. What is your goal? Destroying Ethelberg City, Sterling said without hesitation. Just like what I did in Viridian, I want to overturn the entire city and rebuild it. And to do this, the 4 pillars, rooted in the earth of Ethelberg and sucking the blood of countless people, must be destroyed. I trust that after the battle at the Gilded Tower, you've realized some of this yourself. The current Ethelberg is completely corrupt, just like I asked you back in Viridian. Do you think the current Ethelberg deserves to exist? Sterling's words drew Conrad and Adrian's gaze toward Leo. To be honest, this meeting really didn't concern the two of them. Conrad only participated as the head of the Caldwell family, and Adrian was just dropping by to report news. Neither expected the content of today's meeting to be so momentous. Leo also hadn't expected things to suddenly become so tricky. One Nix was trouble enough. Now a Gregory Granger had popped up. If what Sterling said was true, once Gregory woke up, no one could predict what would happen. Thinking of this, Leo sighed helplessly and stood up. Message me when the operation starts. With that, Leo walked straight out. Sterling smiled. He knew Leo had agreed. He slowly let out a breath. With this, everything was in place. Next, as long as Leo followed the plan and killed Gregory, the crisis would be resolved. Thinking of this, a rare look of anticipation appeared in Sterling's eyes. The 4 pillars. Your good days are over. Having poisoned Ethelberg for so many years, retribution is finally coming. Brother, let me ask, where is your elevator? Leo grabbed a random Caldwell family member and asked. Since there was an elevator, he couldn't be bothered to walk down. Under the guidance of the family member, Leo finally found the elevator. As the elevator descended, he took out his phone to check messages. Sebastian Westcott said he had to go home for something. Marco said Quinn asked him to dinner and left a window open for him. Ethan Sia and Kane heard about the 4 pillars movements and asked if his cover was blown. Ava seemed a bit busy lately and hadn't had time to pay attention to him. Leo felt a bit hurt. When they were dating, Ava messaged him every day. Now that they were married, she had lost interest. Women. Leo thought this while sending a message to Ava. Ava, I miss you. He even added a pitiful emoji. A moment later, Ava called. Leo smiled. Ava still loves me. He walked out of the elevator while answering the phone. Just as he put the phone to his ear, Ava's angry voice rang out. Leo, are you sick in the head? Sending me messages at 4 a.m.? Don't you know this young miss hasn't been sleeping well lately? I finally fell asleep, and your message vibrated me awake. I thought it was something important. If you send me meaningless messages to wake me up again, just wait until you get home. With that, Ava hung up directly, leaving Leo alone, messy in the wind. Leo was bewildered. He looked at his phone. Indeed, it was already 4:00 a.m. Since he rarely felt sleepy, he hadn't noticed the time. He wanted to send a message to explain, but thinking of Ava's words, Leo sheepishly put the phone back in his pocket. Forget it. I won't lower myself to her level. He scanned a shared e-scooter by the roadside and slowly rode back to the clinic. Quinn, what's your zodiac sign? Inside a barbecue restaurant somewhere in Ethelberg, Marco asked with a smile while grilling meat. Quinn sat with her arms crossed, staring at the grilling meat, slightly dazed. Why was she eating barbecue with Marco at this hour? She had truly lost her mind. I don't believe in horoscopes, Quinn said faintly. Marco paused, then laughed awkwardly. I didn't believe in them before either, but my mom said sometimes you gotta believe in these things. If it's fake, it doesn't matter, but what if it's true? This little brother speaks the truth. A voice suddenly rang out beside them. Marco and Quinn turned around. A man wearing sunglasses and carrying a black backpack stood on the street outside the window. Since their table was by the window, he just had to stand there to hear their conversation clearly. Moreover, they were the only table eating barbecue at this hour. Who are you? Marco asked, mouth twitching as he looked at the sunglass-wearing man. Why did such a weirdo pop up in the middle of the night? Who I am isn't important. What's important is that I feel I am fated with you, little brother. As Shane Quill spoke, his eyes inadvertently drifted to the barbecue meat, and he swallowed hard. On such a night, it is rare for us to meet by fate. Why don't we share a couple of drinks? I can even read your fortune for free. Check your aura. Marco frowned slightly. Sorry, we probably don't need. Sure, Quinn suddenly said. She mainly couldn't stand the awkward atmosphere alone with Marco. Although this sunglass guy looked unprofessional, he shouldn't be dangerous. Hey, this beauty truly has a broad mind. Then I respectfully accept. Shane quickly ran into the shop, sat down next to Marco, and carefully placed a black backpack beside him. Don't laugh, but there's a big treasure in this bag. If I lost it, I'd be in huge trouble. Shane laughed, then waved his hand grandly. Waiter, bring 2 beers and more meat. He began to openly freeload just like that. Marco was unhappy. This was supposed to be a rare date between him and Quinn. How did this party crasher suddenly show up? Seeing this, Shane quickly smiled. What's your name, little brother? I'm a professional fortune teller, very accurate. Let me tell you, countless people outside line up to find me, yet they can't even see my face. Because I only read fortunes for those destined. Shane lied without even blushing. Indeed, countless people outside were lining up to find him. It was just that their reason wasn't for fortune-telling. Hearing this, Marco raised an eyebrow and suddenly asked, Can you check marriage compatibility? Hearing this, Quinn couldn't help but prick up her ears. Can. Of course I can. Shane stated immediately, My specialty is reading marriage fate. Hearing this, Marco quickly said, Then help me check quickly. How is my fate with Quinn? Quinn glared at Marco instantly. Who asked something like that right in front of the person? She was sitting right there. Shane heard this and carefully observed Marco's face. He even stuffed a few pieces of barbecue meat into his mouth occasionally. Suddenly, he turned his head to glance at Quinn, then raised his eyebrows and sighed. How is it? Marco asked nervously. Can we be together? Quinn rolled her eyes. She didn't believe in these metaphysical things at all. Well, little brother, let me advise you. Willow catkins on the branch grow few in the wind. There is plenty of other grass in the world to find. Hearing this, Marco felt his heart turn to ash. What does that mean? Shane took a sip of beer and said, If you insist on pursuing this Miss Quinn, the outcome will be, one dies, one remains alone. One dies, one remains alone. Marco Materth. Bam. Quinn couldn't bear it anymore and slammed the table. What one dies, one alone? You damn blind man. What kind of fortune-telling is this? Hearing Quinn call him a blind man, Shane didn't get angry. Instead, he took off his sunglasses. Under the sunglasses was a pair of snow-white eyes, stunning Marco and Quinn. Miss Quinn, you are correct. I am indeed blind. Shane finished speaking and put the sunglasses back on, acting as if he didn't care. Precisely because I am blind, the things ordinary people cannot see are clearer to me. Master, is there no other way? Marco asked hurriedly. I heard people say, if you wear some Guan Yin or Pisho charm, you can avoid disaster. Shane smiled. Fate cannot be reversed, nor changed. Variables cannot be measured. Your outcome is difficult to change. Better to part ways early. He ate meat and drank beer, completely disregarding their moods. Clearly blind, yet he acted as if he wasn't, moving no differently from a normal person. Quinn looked at Marco. Hey, you don't actually believe what he's saying, do you? Marco frowned, ignoring Quinn for the first time, and asked Shane again. You said one dies and one remains alone. The person who dies, who is it? Shane extended his chopsticks and pointed at Marco without hesitation. You. Hearing this, Marco breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. That's good then. As long as it's not Quinn who dies, that's fine. Marco. Quinn shouted. Do you know what you're saying? Then, she looked at Shane with dissatisfaction. If you're done eating, leave quickly. Don't spout nonsense here. She regretted letting this guy in. Why are you guys here? Just then, another voice sounded. The three looked out the window again. Leo sat on a small e-scooter, looking at them curiously, especially at Shane. Originally, he wanted to go back to the clinic, but thinking that it was late, not eating supper would be disrespectful to the moon working overtime. So, Leo rode the scooter to this barbecue joint. It was the only one nearby, still open this late. Mr. Boss Rain, why are you here? Marco looked pleasantly surprised to see Leo. Quinn was also somewhat surprised, not expecting to meet Leo again in such a manner. The meat in Shane's mouth almost fell out. Damn it, how did I run into this guy here? I specifically calculated before going out today. The path was smooth, without ripples. Fuck, I'm done for. Gotta slip away. I still have the mithril pistol on me. If this guy finds out, who knows what will happen? Shane immediately wanted to bolt. Cough, cough. Well, I'm done eating. Thanks to you two for the hospitality. I have things to do, so I'm leaving, Shane said as he stood up, grabbing his backpack to slip away. However, a large hand suddenly appeared on his shoulder, pressing him back into his seat. Leo had arrived in front of Shane at some point, looking at him with a smile. Master, we meet again. Didn't you say I'd have to go to East Side Ridge in North Point to find you? How'd I find you here so soon? Seeing Master so flustered, could it be you didn't calculate meeting me here? Shane's mouth twitched slightly, cursing internally. How the hell could I calculate where a variable like you would show up? If I knew I'd meet you today, I wouldn't have stepped out even if it meant death. Shane was depressed. He had wanted to pick an auspicious day to leave the city safely with a mithril pistol. He picked and chose, only to choose a day like this. It really is fate, Shane sighed to himself. Since Leo didn't plan to let him leave, he might as well continue to freeload. The number of people one meets daily, and who they meet, is all fixed by destiny. Calculating it or not is meaningless, Shane said sagely. The reason I told you to go to East Side Ridge is that I calculated we would eventually meet there one day. Leo nodded, then looked at Marco. Marco, go sit opposite. Marco obeyed, obediently running to the other side to sit next to Quinn. Leo sat next to Shane and waved to the waiter. Excuse me, add a few more plates of meat. Then he pointed at Shane. He'll pay the bill in a bit. Shane, don't look at me like that, Leo smiled. I didn't bring money today. You pay for me first, and I'll write you an IOU later. Shane's mouth twitched. Mr. Evans, you didn't bring money, but those two. He pointed at Marco and Quinn opposite them. They didn't bring any either. Leo looked at the two matter-of-factly and asked, Did you guys bring money? Marco and Quinn froze for a second, then shook their heads. See, none of us brought money. If you don't pay, who will? But I don't have money either, Shane said innocently. You can't expect a disabled person like me to wash dishes, right? No money? No money is easy to solve. Leo casually picked up a piece of barbecue meat, ate it, and said nonchalantly, The stuff in your black backpack should be good for collateral, right? Hearing this, Shane was startled, screaming internally that this was bad. Damn, was this kid born part dog? One sniff, and he knows I have treasure in my bag. Mr. Evans, you joke. There's just some worthless stuff in this bag. Then give me the worthless stuff, and I'll pay for this meal. Leo snorted lightly and said slowly, Taking advantage of me isn't that easy. It wasn't clear if he was talking about this barbecue meal or the $40,000 IOU from before. Either way, Shane realized now that what Sterling said was likely true. This guy really holds a grudge. Marco and Quinn sat silently, afraid to speak. Even the somewhat domineering Quinn restrained herself in front of Leo. Leo's performance in the Gideon family battle had thoroughly convinced Quinn. The later battle at the Gilded Tower, where Leo single-handedly took out a quarter of the Four Pillars combat power, was even more unbelievable. I suddenly remembered. I think I have a little money on my card. Shane laughed awkwardly. Although I am poor, treating Mr. Evans to this meal is still well within my means. Is that so? You said yourself. Leo looked up directly and shouted to the waiter. Hello, please bring all the highest grade, most expensive meat and wine in your shop. Thank you. The waiter froze for a second, then quickly ran to get the meat and wine, telling the manager that big customers might have arrived. Shane was dumbfounded. No, Mr. Evans, you. Thanks for the hospitality, Master. Master is spending a fortune. Let me toast you. Leo interrupted Shane directly, down a glass, and looked at Marco and Quinn. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and toast the Master. Marco and Quinn were observant. They quickly raised their glasses, mimicking Leo's action, and toasted Shane. Master is too generous. Shane's face turned black instantly. Before he could speak, The manager quickly pushed a small cart to Leo's side. "Sir, this is the highest grade beef and wine in our shop." The manager rattled off a long introduction, finally adding, "With my authority, this set can be discounted to $150,000. "How much?" Shane's voice cracked hearing the number. If Leo wasn't holding him down, he might have jumped out the window. Leo looked calmly at the cart and said, "This portion is a bit small. Not enough to eat. Do you have more? Money isn't the problem. Mainly we want to eat happily. Bring as much as you have. Don't worry, we have the money to pay. We won't dine and dash." The manager nodded repeatedly. "Okay, sir. Wait a moment. I'll have the kitchen prepare it right away." Saying that, the manager jogged away. Leo looked at the stunned Marco and Quinn and said, "What are you dazed for? Eat. Such high-grade meat. It's my first time eating it too. Gotta enjoy it all at once, right? Come, master, I'll toast you again. You really spent a fortune." I'm about to break down. Shane collapsed internally. "Don't toast me anymore. You are the master." Shane quickly grabbed Leo's hand, wanting to cry without tears. "Little ancestor, what exactly do you want? Keeping this up, wouldn't this meal cost $1 million? Who the hell eats $1 million worth of barbecue? Even if you have money, you don't squander it like this. Not to mention he didn't have money. He was hunted by everyone in North Point, earning nothing. He just came to Ethelberg and managed to scam a few $1,000s as savings. He thought meeting this ancestor Leo was just bad luck, spending money to avoid disaster. He didn't expect Leo to be this ruthless. This wasn't spending a fortune. If he kept eating like this, Shane washing dishes for the rest of his life wouldn't be enough to pay back this meal. What is Master saying? Could it be Master doesn't have enough money? Leo pretended to suddenly realize. My perspective was too small. Master is incorruptible. How could you pull out so much money at once? How about this? I suddenly remembered I have a bank card in my pocket. I'll treat Master to this meal for now. Master can write me an IOU and pay it back later. However, Master knows doing business isn't easy for me, so I might have to charge a little interest. Master won't mind, right? I'm not afraid of Master running away either. The corners of Leo's mouth rose slightly into a smile as he looked at Shane, saying word by word, "Just like Master calculated, we will meet again at East Side Ridge. At that time, Master just needs to pay back the principal and interest together." Shane looked at Leo's smile and swallowed hard with difficulty. Do we have to do this?" Shane wanted to cry, whispering, "Can I return that $40,000 IOU to you? Stop torturing me, little ancestor." Leo chuckled. "This meal today might cost more than $40,000. Then what do you want? What's in that bag of yours? I told you it's just worthless stuff." "Sure? Think before you speak." Shane was speechless. After a moment of silence, he resigned himself. "It's something very important. Sterling asked me to take it back to North Point." "Sterling asked you to take it?" Leo was even more curious. "What is it?" "Don't worry about what it is. You can't open it anyway." Shane said helplessly, "This thing is useless to you." Leo inadvertently touched the black backpack. Seeing this, Shane quickly hugged the backpack to his chest, afraid Leo would snatch it. "I really can't give this to you. Sterling will kill me." What he didn't notice was that the moment he pulled the backpack back, a silver light flashed in Leo's hand, but quickly disappeared. Leo calmly withdrew his hand and muttered, "Fine, don't give it. But you have to write the IOU, right? Either give the item or write the IOU. Pick one." Isn't this just robbery? Robbery isn't as fast as this." Leo said righteously, "Do you want to dine and dash?" Shane really wanted to slap himself right now. Why was his mouth so greedy? Why did he have to come mooch this meal? After struggling for a second, Shane made a decision. No matter what, the mithril pistol couldn't be lost. It was just an IOU. At worst, it was just one more creditor. He had plenty of creditors. Although Leo was tricky, as long as he wanted to hide, he could still hide. Probably. I'll write the IOU," Shane said weakly. "But let's agree first, the IOU is only for exactly how much we ate." He was afraid Leo would open his mouth like a lion and ask for 10 or 20 million. He couldn't afford that. "Of course." Leo smiled slightly, then immediately started eating. With his appetite, this amount of meat was just forcing the gaps between his teeth. Eating 100,000 or so wouldn't be a problem. He still had the $3 million bank card Otis Osborne gave him in his pocket. It was time to spend. Ever since David Evans cleaned out his money, Leo had learned a painful lesson not to save. Drink today's wine today. Instead of saving it for his dad to snatch, better to use it to enjoy himself. Besides, he was just fronting the money. Once he got the IOU, he'd still have to ask Shane for the money back later. Shane also started eating frantically. Eating one less piece of meat would be a loss for him. He had never eaten such expensive barbecue in his life. Marco and Quinn reacted too and joined in. Rarely did someone treat them to such expensive meat. Of course, they had to eat their fill. Before long, the three of them were almost bursting, but Leo was still eating. It was as if his stomach was a bottomless pit. Watching the plates stack higher and higher, Shane was breaking down. How much money was this? Soon, the manager ran over and gave him the answer. They had eaten a total of $150,000 worth of barbecue. The good news was it capped at $150,000, not going higher because there was no more meat. The bad news was, damn, one meal cost $150,000. Shane never thought in his life he would eat such expensive barbecue. Card. Leo domineeringly pulled out his bank card and handed it to the manager, then turned to look at Shane. You heard, $150,000. Minus the $40,000 I owe you. You should owe me $110,000. Write the IOU, master. Leo asked the manager for a pen and paper, afraid Shane didn't have any. Shane's mouth twitched. He took the pen and paper and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Wait, this kid doesn't know my name, right? If I just write a random name, wouldn't that work? Click. Just as he was thinking, Shane heard a sound and turned his head. He saw Leo pointing his phone camera right at him. He had taken a photo. Perfect angle, got the full face. Leo looked at the photo and smiled with satisfaction. If you write a fake name to fool me, I'll release your photo and put a bounty on you. Marco and Quinn watched, sighing secretly. Too ruthless. How big was the grudge? Facing Leo's threat, Shane gritted his teeth. He had offended plenty of people outside and had to hide every day. If Leo really released his photo and put a bounty on him, Leo wouldn't even need to act. Someone would naturally come for him. Sighing, Shane helplessly wrote his name at the bottom, then handed it to Leo along with the previous $40,000 IOU. Shane Quill. Leo looked at the name on the signature line and raised an eyebrow. This isn't a fake name, right? It's real. Shane said helplessly. You threatened me like that. How would I dare to fool you? Leo chuckled and put away the IOU. Under the incredibly respectful service of the barbecue restaurant manager, the four were escorted to the door. Where are you going, master? We can give you a ride, Leo said with a smile. Marco and Quinn went to get the car. Leo stayed to wait for them. Shane quickly waved his hands. No need. You go your way, don't mind me. He had to leave Ethelberg tonight and deliver the box containing the mithril pistol to North Point. Thinking of this, Shane quickly opened his backpack to check. The box was still there. His heart relaxed instantly. Then, he looked at Leo and hesitated. There is one thing I should tell you. What? Your aura has changed. What do you mean? Shane explained, a person's aura is hard to change, or rather, hard to change in a short time. But it hasn't been long since I last looked at your aura, and it has become completely different. This isn't a good thing. Shane adjusted his sunglasses and said coolly, this means you are in an extremely unstable environment. From now on, any choice you make will cause a huge change in your fate. Simply put, you are a variable, and everything around you is also a variable. From a mathematical perspective, this should be called variable squared. Leo frowned. What nonsense are you spouting? Shane shrugged and spread his hands. It doesn't matter if you don't understand. Just giving you a piece of advice. Be serious and prudent in making every choice you face next. After Shane Quill finished speaking, he walked away without looking back. Leo stood in place, watching his retreating figure, eyes flickering. Even now, he wasn't sure if this sunglasses guy was a pure scammer or actually had some skill. Only when Marco drove the red sedan over did Leo open the door and get in. Mr. Reed, you know that fortune teller? Marco asked. Sort of. Can he really tell fortunes? I don't know. Leo looked out the window and said softly, just treat his words as noise. If fate really is set by heaven and unchangeable, we might as well just eat and wait to die. Quinn remained silent. She was somewhat flustered by Shane's words. One dies, one remains alone. Regardless of her feelings for Marco, this sentence was like an anchor stuck in her heart. Whatever move she made would be influenced by these words. When the three arrived at the clinic entrance, Leo got out first. Instead of using the main door, he went around the back and climbed through the window into his room. A real man never takes the ordinary path. Quinn, I'll be going then. Let's meet again next time. I know a really nice dessert place. Quinn watched Marco talk endlessly, feeling touched inside. Are you leaving or not? Marco froze, scratching his head with an awkward smile. I talk too much. Leaving now? Wait, what is it, Quinn? The car keys. If you take them, how do I drive? Oh, right, have it. Saw the... Marco quickly took the keys out of his pocket and handed them to Quinn. Quinn went to the driver's seat, slammed the door shut, said nothing, and stepped on the gas, driving straight off. Only when the taillights disappeared did Marco turn around reluctantly. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. Marco received a message. It was a photo from Leo. In the photo, Marco and Quinn were sitting close together eating barbecue in the restaurant. It was obviously a sneak shot. Their attention was entirely on the meat, completely unaware of the camera. Save it yourself. You're welcome. Seeing Leo's message, Marco grinned foolishly, looking at himself and Quinn in the photo. Turns out they were sitting that close. Inside the room, Leo lay on the bed, looking curiously at the object in his hand. A pistol gleaming with silver light. What is this thing? This is what Sterling gave to Shane. Doesn't look special. It's not even a real gun, just a model. Aside from being heavy, there's nothing noteworthy. Did that fortune teller trick me? Leo thought about it, then shook his head. Judging by Shane's actions and demeanor at the time, this thing was indeed important. There must be a secret he didn't know yet. Regardless, this silver pistol must be crucial to Sterling. And Sterling certainly didn't anticipate that he had accidentally acquired this gun. Sterling, even you make mistakes. Leo decided this gun would be his secret weapon for getting back at Sterling later. For not telling me the Caldwells have an elevator. I'm keeping score. Leo snorted coldly, already imagining Sterling's brilliant expression when Sterling was searching the world for this gun, only for Leo to suddenly pull it out in front of him. Meanwhile, inside the Westcott estate, in a dimly lit space, Sebastian Westcott lay on a bed, groggily opening his eyes. Where is this? Sebastian looked around, finding everything incredibly strange. He knew every place in the Westcott estate, and this was definitely not one of them. He wanted to get up, but his hands and feet were chained, rendering him immobile. Sebastian, you're awake? Silas Westcott's voice rang out. Sebastian looked towards the sound. He saw Silas sitting on a sofa nearby, staring at him intently. Father, why? Sebastian murmured with a hint of despair. Sorry, Sebastian. Silas explained expressionlessly. I drank Nix's blood. Now I am about to lose control and become its puppet. The only way is to drain the blood from your body and integrate it into mind to force Nix's blood out. Sebastian, only you can help me with this, because you are my son. Those two fools, Harrison Shong and Otis Osborne, probably haven't realized this yet. Otherwise, they wouldn't continue trading with Nix. Hearing this, Sebastian looked at his father in despair. For the first time, he felt Silas was a stranger to him. Father, in your eyes, what exactly am I? You. Silas's eyes held a hint of disdain. What do you think? Sebastian, long ago, I knew you could absolutely not become the heir to the Westcott family. If the family were truly handed to you, it would be finished sooner or later. So I had no choice. For the family, I could only trade with Nix. Seeking longevity, seeking to lead the Westcott family eternally, I had to do this. In the end, I became like this because you forced me. Silas suddenly became agitated, shouting at Sebastian. Why are you always worse than others? Why are you so disappointing? Why don't you know how to work hard? Why do you always like doing meaningless things? Why did I give birth to a useless son like you? Silas's words were like knives, cutting Sebastian's heart into pieces. A tear slowly fell. Sebastian looked helplessly at Silas, his mouth opening for a long time before finally spitting out 3 words slowly. I am sorry. If only he were more useful. If only he were better than others. If only he were a qualified family heir. Then maybe none of this would have happened. Sebastian fantasized like this, but he was just deceiving himself. How could he not know these were just Silas's excuses? He just hoped that the image of Silas in his heart would crumble a little slower. At this moment, he remembered the days spent at the clinic again. What kept him going? It was wanting his father to be proud of him, wanting to become a qualified family heir. That was why he drank bowl after bowl of bitter medicine and did push-ups he never would have done before. But now, everything was meaningless. Silas stood up and said slowly, I'll come find you again the day after tomorrow. Cherish these 2 days. With that, Silas turned and left. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. During these 2 days, Ethelberg City quieted down unexpectedly, returning to its former state. This made the major powers in Ethelberg somewhat uncomfortable. Since Leo arrived in Ethelberg, there were battles every day and trouble everywhere. The sudden peace made everyone even more panicked. Days like this seemed to be the prelude to an approaching storm. At the entrance of the clinic, Leo sat in a lounge chair, leisurely basking in the sun. Sebastian still hadn't returned. Leo sensed something was wrong, so he sent Marco to the Westcott estate to check the situation. The 4 pillars were restless, No one knew if they would swarm out in the next second. Leo closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun. The next second, hurried footsteps sounded. Leo looked up and frowned instantly. He saw Steward Shu running over from a distance, looking anxious. "And Mr. Rain, it's bad." Steward Shu shouted as he ran. "Something terrible has happened." Leo stood up instantly and went to Steward Shu. "What is it? Speak slowly." Steward Shu swallowed hard and said anxiously, "Just now, that employee you sent came to find the young master. As a result, when the patriarch found out, he actually ordered your employee to be taken down and plans to kill him. I felt something was wrong. Before your employee was captured, he told me to come find you quickly." Hearing this, Leo frowned tightly. Marco was captured? Why? Silas clearly knew Marco was his subordinate and his identity as doctor. Rain hadn't been exposed. Why did Silas suddenly flip? The patriarch has been acting strange lately, and ever since the young master returned home last time, I haven't seen him again. Steward Shu panted as he spoke. "These abnormal situations give me a bad feeling. I didn't know what to do, so I could only come to find you, Mr. Rain. I watched the young master grow up. I really don't want anything to happen to him." Leo's eyes flickered. It seemed the problem was with Silas. Whether Steward Shu's words were true or false, he had to go to the Westcott estate. With Marco captured, he had to go, even if it exposed his identity as doctor. Rain, there was no choice. Lead the way. Leo quickly decided to go to the Westcott estate. However, just as Leo was about to follow Steward Shu into the car, his phone suddenly vibrated. Leo took it out to look, and his pupils shrank violently. It was a message from Sterling. Only one sentence. "The 4 pillars have moved. David Evans and Director Jensen are already on their way to the Granger Foundation. You need to act." Damn it. Why at this time? Leo looked at Steward Shu, his eyes uncertain. Go to the Westcott estate to save Marco? Or follow the plan to attack the Granger Foundation? For a moment, Leo found it hard to make a choice. Wait, choice. Leo suddenly remembered Shane Quill's words, telling him to make choices prudently. Damn that fortune teller. Leo cursed silently. Did he really calculate even this? "Mr. Rain, what's wrong?" Steward Shu asked, seeing Dr. Rain delaying getting in the car. "Is there something else?" Leo didn't speak, but weighed the options in his heart. If Nix worked for Gregory Granger, then Nix must be guarding the Granger Foundation right now. His dad and the director definitely wouldn't be a match for him. But Marco... Leo clenched his fists. He knew he didn't have much time and had to decide quickly. "What are you standing there for?" A voice sounded behind Leo. Leo turned abruptly. He saw Professor Miller appearing behind him at some point, looking at him with disgust. "Kid, when did you become so indecisive? You weren't like this before." "Professor." Leo saw the familiar face and asked blankly, "What should I choose? Go save Marco, or go to the Granger Foundation?" Hearing this, Professor Miller immediately understood Leo's predicament. He smiled lightly and said, "I thought it was some big deal. Just this. You go do your thing. As for the Granger Foundation, I'll cover for you first. Just so happens I have some things to discuss properly with Nix." Leo was stunned. "But Professor, you can't beat Nix." "Get lost. Can you guarantee a win if you go?" Professor Miller looked calm. "This is just like substituting a class back at school. I'll teach the first half of the class for you. You come and teach the second half." With that, Professor Miller waved his hand and turned to walk the other way. "Not much time left. You better hurry, or class might end early." Watching Professor Miller's back, the confusion in Leo's eyes dissipated significantly. He decisively got into the car and closed the door. "Go!" Steward Shu was confused. "Mr. Rain, who was that just now? Didn't you hear me?" Leo looked up, staring at Steward Shu, saying word by word, "I said go." Intimidated by that glance, Steward Shu instantly felt a wave of pressure, sweat dripping from his forehead. "Okay." He quickly stepped on the gas, driving toward the Westcott estate. Whoosh! A rope dropped from a helicopter, landing in front of Sterling and Adrian. "You go up first." Sterling smiled at Adrian. "I need to make a call." Adrian nodded without hesitation, grabbed a rope, and climbed up. Sterling calmly took out his phone and dialed a number. "Hello, Harrison Shong?" This voice. "You are Sterling." Sterling looked at the crowd at the foot of the mountain and laughed. "Not bad. You know it's me just by the voice." "Calling at this time. Do you plan to surrender?" At the base of the mountain, Harrison Shong said grimly, "It's useless, Sterling. Today is a dead end for you. Even if you flee, as long as you are still in Ethelberg, you can never avoid this battle." I know," Sterling said lightly, "so I didn't plan to flee." "Is that so? But why do I hear a helicopter on your end?" "You have good ears," Sterling praised, then said, "I am indeed leaving on a helicopter." "Useless, Sterling. Unless you leave Ethelberg, you will forever be hiding like a rat crossing the street. While the two spoke, Harrison Shang was already directing his men to form an encirclement from all directions, slowly moving up the mountain. I think you misunderstood. Sterling said slowly. I didn't want to flee, I just didn't want to get caught in the blast. With that, Sterling reached out and grabbed the rope. Blast? What do you mean? The corners of Sterling's mouth slowly rose into a smile. Harrison Shang, you should have heard about Anthony Reed's earth-shattering explosion at the island battlefield, right? Do you want to see for yourself if the power of that explosion can really blow up half an island? Hearing this, Harrison Shang's expression changed instantly. He looked up abruptly at the high mountain before him. No way. The next second, as if verifying the thought in his heart, Sterling slowly snapped his fingers. Snap. The moment the snap fell. Boom! 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 Huge explosions, deafening to the ears, created shockwaves that knocked people over. Sterling held Adrian's hand and successfully boarded the helicopter. Harrison Shang, this is a gift from me. Enjoy it. With that, he hung up the phone and said to Adrian beside him, detonate them all. Adrian nodded and operated the laptop in front of him. Immediately, huge explosions sounded continuously, the shock waves causing the helicopter to bump incessantly. Retreat! Retreat quickly! Harrison Shang screamed hoarsely. He never imagined Sterling would use such an incredibly violent method to break his siege. In his impression, Sterling always excelled at schemes and conspiracies, so he was guarded everywhere. Little did he know, Sterling couldn't be bothered to play games this time and went straight to the point. You brought people to besiege me? Fine, I'll blow you all up. He learned this move from Leo. Works pretty well, Sterling said with a light laugh. In the front, Carol Evans maneuvered the helicopter, clicking her tongue at the tragic explosions. Sterling, since when did you plan this scenario? Carol couldn't help but ask. As far as I know, after Anthony Reed returned with his severed arm, you had him and Julia Reed go back to the island battlefield to dig up that batch of explosives, right? Did you start setting up the 4 pillars back then? Sterling smiled. Consensual matters. How can you call it a setup? If they didn't think of killing me, would they have fallen to this state? Just a bit sorry for old Conrad, blowing up his home along with the mountain. Now I owe him a huge favor. Carol's eyes twitched. Sterling's breezy appearance made it seem like this wasn't his first time doing this. Don't tell me. Anthony Reed's explosion at the island battlefield was also planned by this guy. Carol shook her head secretly. That incident probably had something to do with Sterling too. Thinking back now, there was a high probability the island battlefield incident was Sterling's work. Only Anthony Reed took the blame in the end. Everyone said Leo blew up wherever he went. Now it seems Sterling was the ancestor of playing with explosives. Once blew up half an island, now blew up a mountain, along with countless people from the 4 pillars. Carol estimated that with the scale of this explosion, Harrison Shang's forces would lose at least 70%, and Sterling himself didn't lose a single hair. The 4 pillars' joint encirclement was simply a joke. Ling! On the ground, Harrison Shang shouted in anger, eyes red. No one noticed that for an instant his eyes filled with endless black, but it quickly faded. Harrison Shang felt like a fool, played in the palm of Sterling's hand. Watching the explosions continue, many people's ears were deafened by the shock. Everywhere the eye could see was explosion fire, debris, blood, and corpses. This earth-shattering explosion also completely stunned the people of Ethelberg. Holy crap, what's that noise? Aliens attacking. Seems to be the direction of Caldwell's Crossing. What happened over there? Breaking news. The 4 pillars besieged Caldwell's Crossing. A shocking battle has erupted. Are you bullshitting? This noise, are they fighting with nukes? It seems like the entire mountain at Caldwell's Crossing blew up. What? That inhumane? Blowing up the whole mountain? How many explosives did that take? The 4 pillars suffered heavy losses. Rumors began to spread, but no one knew the true situation yet because no one dared to approach that area. The sound of explosions continued. It had been exploding for a long time like setting off firecrackers, leaving everyone numb from the noise. Meanwhile, somewhere in Ethelberg, Leland Vance slowly looked up at the direction of the explosion sounds and sneered. You guys fight him. Anyway, I can't afford to provoke him. If you 4 pillars are capable, you go play. If you can actually kill Sterling, I'll call you 4 pillars daddy. At the same time, another group of people looked toward Caldwell's Crossing with tears in their eyes. It was the Caldwell family members who had just evacuated. Sterling, you goddamn bastard. Conrad gritted his teeth, feeling incredibly aggrieved inside. Caldwell's Crossing, where they had lived for so long, was blown up by Sterling just like that. Heaven knows how complicated his feelings were when Sterling told him Caldwell's Crossing was full of explosives. 1,000 words finally converged into one sentence. Fuck you, Sterling. The massive explosion at Caldwell's Crossing also startled Leo, who was on his way to the Westcott estate. Holy crap. Leo sat in the car, looking toward Caldwell's Crossing, raising an eyebrow. Sterling had this move up his sleeve? Why didn't he say so earlier? Leo had the high explosive skill. Explosion power doubled. If he were the one detonating it, the whole of Ethelberg would take flight. Tisk, regrettable. Leo shook his head, then looked at the dazed steward Shu and shouted, "What are you staring at? Drive." Huh? Oh. Steward Shu snapped back to reality, but the panic in his heart could no longer be hidden by his expression. This explosion seemed to be a starting point, giving him the feeling that Ethelberg was about to change. Not just Steward Shu, but all the major powers in Ethelberg became panic-stricken because of this explosion. They knew this was a conflict between Ethelberg's top powers. For small factions like them, preserving themselves was already good enough. Meanwhile, inside the Westcott estate, Marco was tied up with ropes. Silas sat in a chair, scrutinizing him. The sound of explosions didn't seem to attract Silas's attention much. Or perhaps the situation at Caldwell's Crossing had little impact on him. "Dr. Rain sent you?" Silas asked slowly. Marco squeezed out a smile. "Yes, Patriarch Westcott." Dr. Rain saw that young Master Westcott hadn't returned for a long time and didn't reply to messages, so he asked me to check the situation. Who knew as soon as I arrived, I'd be tied up as a suspicious person by you guys. Look at this misunderstanding. How about you have someone untie me? Hearing this, Silas didn't move. Instead, he stared at Marco with burning eyes. "This face of yours seems a bit wrong." Hearing this, Marco was startled. Could it be that during the struggle, when being tied up just now, he accidentally messed up the disguise Carol Evans made for him? "Man," Silas snorted coldly, looking at Marco icily, and growled, "Wipe his face for me, thoroughly." With a command, several men stepped forward, held Marco down, and carefully wiped his face over and over again. The force was so hard they almost scrubbed the skin off. MMPH. Marco wanted to struggle, but it was useless. Soon, his disguise was stripped away, revealing his true face. Just as I expected, Silas looked at Marco's face and asked, "Who are you exactly? What is Dr. Rain's purpose in approaching my Westcott family?" Marco gritted his teeth tightly, saying nothing. "Mr. Reed, come save me quickly. If you don't come, I'm really going to be killed by this old guy. Then there will be no one to drive for you anymore." Seeing Marco silent, Silas snorted lightly. "Forget it. Afterwards, I'll ask Dr. Rain myself, take him to the backyard and dispose of him." With that, Silas stood up and walked away straight, never looking at Marco again, as if Marco was already a dead man. "Hey, wait. Can't we negotiate?" Marco was hoisted up and shouted hurriedly, "I know intel. I know a lot of intel." Hearing this, Silas paused and turned back. "Let's hear it. What do you know?" Marco gasped for air, trembling. "Dr. Rain and I are actually Harrison Shang's people. He sent us to approach you, wanting to attack you at a critical moment." Before Marco finished, Silas waved his hand, signaling to drag him away. "Think it through before spinning a story." "I'm not a fool," Silas said coldly. Marco was confused. Why did the guy know he was lying as soon as he opened his mouth? Why did Leo trick everyone on the first try, but he couldn't? "Wait, I'll tell the truth this time, really the truth." Silas sneered. If Marco had insisted no matter what that he and Dr. Rain were Harrison Shang's people, he might have believed a fraction, but with just a casual bluff, the other party admitted the previous words were lies. Still too tender. Marco was dragged to the backyard just like that. Silas went alone to the room where Sebastian was kept. Pushing open the door, he saw a tube inserted into Sebastian, blood flowing through the tube into a basin. Silas smiled slightly, walked over, reached out to cup the blood in the basin, and drank a mouthful. The metallic taste made Silas frown, but the feeling of relief after swallowing the blood mesmerized him even more. "Almost there. I can already feel that power gradually being suppressed by me. Sebastian, your blood. I definitely won't let it flow in vain." Silas's eyes gradually became crazy. "Once I control this power, it will be time for my Westcott family to rise. All your sacrifices are worth it." Sebastian's face was pale. He used all his strength to open his eyes, looking at his father's face. Then, he closed them again in despair, as if resigning to fate. Blood dripped from the corner of Silas's mouth. He took off his coat, his pupils gradually invaded by black. Hee, blood. I want blood. As if addicted, he directly picked up the basin of fresh blood and drank from it. Gulp, gulp. With every gulp, the black in Silas's pupils faded a bit. Only when the whole basin of blood was finished did the black in Silas's pupils completely fade. Still a bit short, just a bit short. I can feel it. That power is being assimilated by me. Silas was incredibly excited, looking at the transfusion tube connected to Sebastian, becoming more impatient. He wished he could drain all the blood from Sebastian right now. Sebastian had already fallen into a coma due to excessive blood loss, completely losing perception of the outside world. Silas watched the blood dripping into the basin drop by drop, feeling it was too slow. So, he slowly reached out, wanted to pull out the tube, and suck Sebastian's blood dry all at once. Just then, he suddenly heard footsteps. There shouldn't be anyone coming here. Silas was puzzled inside, just as he planned to stand up to check the situation. Bang! The iron door of the room was kicked flying. The door slammed heavily into Silas. Caught off guard, Silas was smashed against the wall along with the door. Ugh! Who is it? Blackness surfaced in Silas's pupils. His voice was hoarse as he glared at the intruder. When he saw the identity of the person clearly, he suddenly froze. How is this possible? Didn't you? Leo had already restored his original appearance, standing at the door, looking at him with indifferent eyes. The starlight rising in his pupils reminded Silas of that figure during the battle at the Gilded Tower. Marco stood behind Leo, raising a middle finger at Silas. I say, old dog Westcott. A rare expression of anger appeared between Leo's brows. Looking at the comatose Sebastian, he gritted his teeth and asked word by word, to my employee, what the hell did you do? 10 minutes earlier, Stewart Shu's car pulled up to the main gate of the Westcott estate. Leo Evans stepped out, and several guards immediately moved forward. Halt! No entry. Leo frowned. You guys don't recognize me. What do you think you're doing? Stewart Shu ran up, scolding them. This is Dr. Rain, the Westcott family's chief physician. Apologies, but the patriarch has issued orders. No one is to set foot inside the Westcott gate today, no matter who they are, the guard replied coldly. Preposterous. Steward Shu glared. I'll go speak to the patriarch myself. Shu attempted to step forward, but the guards raised their guns in unison, aiming directly at him. Apologies, Steward Shu. Even you cannot enter. Shu froze, looking at the muzzles pointed at him, his body trembling. It was hard to tell if he was shaking from anger or fear. Do you know what you're doing? Steward Shu, please step back, the guard said, his eyes icy. Otherwise, don't blame us for firing. Leo watched the scene silently, then suddenly started laughing. The laughter drew the attention of Shu and the guards. They all looked at Dr. Rain, confused as to why this man would suddenly laugh at a time like this. I was wrong, Leo whispered. To hell with this deep cover nonsense. To hell with being a spy, getting close to the Westcott family, becoming the chief physician, calling Silas Westcott his brother. He thought his undercover operation was going perfectly. He thought the identity of Dr. Rain would play a massive role. Who would have guessed that at the critical moment, this identity couldn't even get him through the front door? And Marco had been captured directly. Screw Dr. Rain, Leo cursed. I was wrong from the start. Undercover work really doesn't suit me. Dealing with you people, I should have just blown the place up and been done with it. As his voice fell, Leo's face suddenly changed. Under everyone's gaze, like a magic trick, he reverted to his original appearance. That handsome, clean-cut face now held a gaze as cold as ice. You're Leo Evans. Steward Shu recognized him immediately and collapsed to the ground in terror, as if he had seen a ghost. Yep, aren't you dead? Leo ignored him, staring calmly at the armed guards. I'm in a hurry, he said in a low voice. 3 counts. If you don't move, don't blame me for getting rough. 3. The guards froze, although they didn't understand how Dr. Rain had suddenly turned into Leo Evans. They had certainly heard of Leo's reputation. This was the ruthless man who had single-handedly taken out a quarter of the combat power of the 3 great families. They were absolutely no match for him. Some of them began to lose their nerve, their gun barrels lowering slightly. 2. However, someone shouted, Leo Evans died a long time ago. This guy in front of us is definitely an imposter. Hearing this, everyone snapped back to reality. Right, Leo Evans was dead. He died in front of so many people. How could he come back to life? The person in front of them must be a fake. The lower guns were raised again. What? Leo finished the count, and his figure vanished from where he stood. A blur swept past, and thin red lines instantly appeared on the guards' necks. Blood sprayed out a split second later. Ugh! Ah! They clutched their necks, looks of disbelief on their faces, before slowly collapsing to the ground. Steward Shu watched, trembling violently. His brain had completely stopped working. Why did Dr. Rain turn to Leo Evans? Why was Leo Evans still alive? He couldn't figure out the answers, but he knew one thing clearly. Today, all hell was breaking loose. After disposing of the guards, Leo glanced at Steward Shu, but ignored him, striding directly through the Westcott estate gates. The priority was ensuring Marco's safety. Stop. We'll let you in. Assassin. That face. He's Leo Evans. Find a patriarch quick. The moment Leo stepped into the Westcott estate, the slaughter began. No one who entered his line of sight could escape. Where is that idiot Marco? Leo frowned, preparing to grab someone to interrogate, when he suddenly heard a scream. Boss, save me. It was Marco's voice. Leo immediately pinpointed the direction and sprinted toward it. At that moment, Marco was tied up, facing several men preparing to draw their guns and execute him. Marco had been in despair, but hearing the commotion of an intruder, he realized Leo had come for him. Other than Leo, no one would dare to brazenly kill their way into the Westcott estate. So, Marco shouted with everything he had, hoping Leo would notice him. What are you screaming for? The man preparing to execute Marco was startled by the yell. He chambered around, pressed the gun against Marco's head, and said darkly, Don't expect anyone to come save you. You're dead. Goodbye. The man prepared to pull the trigger, but suddenly felt a chill on his neck. Huh? He reached up to touch his throat. Where did this blood come from? Why is there blood on my neck? That was his final thought as he collapsed. Marco squeezed his eyes shut, ready for death, when he suddenly felt the gun move away from his head. He opened his eyes and looked up. Leo looked at him and let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, I made it. Boss. Marco looked ecstatic. I knew you'd come for me. Leo used a dagger to cut the ropes binding him. Cut the crap. We're tight on time, and the mission is heavy. We still have to get to the Granger Foundation. Yeah. Marco stretched his limbs, nodding frantically. I'll drive you. I'll get you there in record time. Just as the two were about to leave, Leo suddenly frowned. Why is there suddenly a strong smell of blood? Boss, you killed so many people, of course it smells like blood. No, this blood smell is different from those. With his senses fully heightened by his skills, Leo detected something wrong. He whipped his head around, locking onto a direction. Check over there. He led Marco toward a rockery not far away. Leo sniffed the air gently. Strange. Why is the scent of blood coming from underground? Leo didn't hesitate. He delivered a decisive kick, shattering the rockery. Sure enough, a secret passage was revealed before them. Leo and Marco exchanged a look, then stepped inside. After walking a short distance, they arrived at a large iron door. Through the metal, Leo heard Silas Westcott's voice. Sebastian, my son, I won't let your blood flow in vain. Leo's eyes widened. He kicked the iron door open, revealing Silas Westcott and his son inside. Leo Evans, why are you still alive? Silas Westcott stared at Leo's face in shock and disbelief. I saw it with my own eyes. Harrison Shong killed you. If an old relic like you is still breathing, how could I die? Leo looked at him with cold eyes, then glanced at Sebastian Westcott, quickly assessing his condition. Massive blood loss. If this continued, he wouldn't make it. It was a good thing Leo had forced Sebastian to exercise and take medicine recently, improving his physical constitution. Otherwise, he would have croaked by now. Marco, get Sebastian out of here, Leo said, his gaze fixed on Silas. I'll play with this old dog. Hearing this, Marco didn't hesitate. He ran forward, preparing to grab Sebastian. Don't touch him. Silas roared, rushing toward Marco. However, he had only taken one step when a leg suddenly appeared in front of his face. Bang! Leo kicked Silas flying, slamming him hard against the wall. Taking advantage of the moment, Marco pulled the tubes from Sebastian's body and applied basic first aid to stop the bleeding. Sebastian opened his eyes groggily and saw Leo's back. Dr. Boss, he murmured softly before passing out again. Marco struggled to hoist Sebastian onto his back and shouted to Leo, Boss, I'm getting him out first. With that, he ran toward the exit. He knew staying would only be a burden to Leo. Stop! A low, raspy voice echoed. Silas Westcott slowly crawled up from the ground, his eyes now completely black. You are not permitted to take my blood. Leo frowned. Those black eyes looked exactly like the ones Nyx had. Sure enough, you people have stopped being human. Leo gripped his dagger in a forward hold. You like drinking blood so much? Then I'll let some of yours out. Leo turned into a blur, charging at Silas. Everywhere his dagger landed, it targeted an artery. "Get away!" Silas roared, punching at Leo. In this state, Silas's punching power was nearly on par with Leo's. However, lacking rationality, his agility was far inferior. Leo easily dodged the punch, scoffing, "I could suppress Nyx, let alone a second-hand knockoff like you." He stabbed several more times, and Silas's blood continued to flow. Leo noticed that the more blood Silas lost, the weaker he seemed to become. Blood was the weakness. Realizing this, Leo began a full-service bloodletting treatment on Silas. "No! My blood! My blood!" Sensing the loss of his blood, Silas began to panic. This was his blood, and it was his power. Still want to drink blood? Go drink piss. Seeing the timing was right, Leo seized the opportunity and drove his knife viciously into Silas's heart. "Ugh! No, I won't die. I can't die." Silas collapsed on the ground in agony, his eyes filled with terror. At the same time, the black in his eyes gradually faded, signifying the loss of his power. "I haven't achieved eternal life yet. I still have to lead the Westcott family to the peak. I can't die like this." Leo stood before Silas, looking down at him calmly. "The Westcott dynasty won't exist anymore. Goodbye, Silas." Leo raised the dagger and drove it hard into Silas's skull. With that, Silas Westcott ceased to breathe. The pool of blood on the ground announced his death. Confirming Silas was dead, Leo deactivated his full skill state, panting for breath before quickly running toward the exit. Outside, Marco was guarding the entrance of the secret passage with Sebastian on his back. Seeing Leo emerge, Marco hurriedly said, "Boss, there's still quite a few Westcott people." "Follow me. I'll cut a path out," Leo said decisively. With Leo's overwhelming strength, they quickly carved a bloody path out of the Westcott estate. "Boss, Sebastian's condition isn't looking good. He needs a hospital immediately," Marco said gravely. "If we go to the Granger Foundation first, he definitely won't make it." Leo frowned. Just as he was about to speak, a voice called out, "I'll take the young master to the hospital." They looked back to see Steward Shu rushing over, his eyes fixed on Sebastian on Marco's back. "Give the young master to me. I'll get him to the hospital." Leo looked into Steward Shu's eyes, then said, "All right, he's in your hands." Marco obediently moved Sebastian into Shu's car. Shu didn't say another word, slamming on the gas and speeding toward the hospital. Leo and Marco found a random car in the Westcott estate and headed for the Granger Foundation. Meanwhile, at the Granger Foundation, David Evans and Director Jensen had surrounded the place with their respective forces. However, a single figure stood before the main gate of the Granger estate, causing David and the others to frown deeply. "Morgan, are you sure you won't step aside?" David Evans chuckled lightly. "What's so good about the Grangers that it's worth you guarding their door?" President Morgan, dressed in black and wearing a demon mask, spoke with a raspy voice. "Go back. No one touches Gregory Granger. Furthermore, Morgan died a long time ago. The only one living now is the Nightmare." David's mouth twitched. This guy was stubborn as a mule. And where the hell was Leo? Why hadn't that kid shown up yet? They weren't a match for the Nightmare, let alone the remaining forces the Grangers had held in reserve. The two sides stood in a standoff as time ticked by. Director Jensen looked at David gravely. "If we don't make a move, Gregory Granger might actually wake up." "No shit, you think I don't know that?" David snapped. "The problem is winning the fight. We brought a lot of people, sure, we might be able to take down Morgan, but after that, who's going to kill Gregory? So we just wait?" Jensen asked. Just then, a taxi approached from the distance, drawing everyone's attention. Under their gaze, Professor Miller opened the door, lighting a cigarette in his mouth. "Thanks, driver." Miller waved at the cabbie, then leisurely walked toward them. "Yo, everyone's here? Having a staring contest." Seeing this, David Evans laughed. "See? Help has arrived." The Nightmare saw Miller, and his expression changed beneath the mask. Miller tossed the cigarette but aside, stood between the two sides, and looked at Morgan. "Long time no see. Teacher," Professor Miller grinned. "How about a chat between master and student?" "Gone to eat an apple. No more updates today." Outside the Granger Foundation, beneath the demon mask, a pair of black eyes stared intensely at the slouching figure before him. "Zhang Yu, I am no longer your teacher." "Yo, not thinking about eating me this time? That was my rationality in chaos before. Forget it. Words are useless." The Nightmare looked at him and continued. "Are you sure you want to be my enemy? I won't show mercy. You will die." Hearing this, Professor Miller acted completely indifferent. "It doesn't matter. I've already died once anyway." He looked back at David Evans and said lightly, "I'll hold it off. You guys go do what you need to do. David nodded. You be careful. Bang! Before he could finish, the nightmare suddenly rushed forward and sent Miller flying with a fierce punch. David and the others stared at the airborne Miller, dumbfounded. Seriously, bro? With that kind of performance, who gave you the courage to act tough? Screw you, Morgan. You have no honor. Miller's roar came from a distance. The nightmare frowned and growled. I told you, don't call me by that name. He charged at Miller again. David Evans froze for a second, then quickly rallied everyone to attack the Granger Foundation. Go, go, go. Miller can't hold on for long. We have to push harder before he gets killed. We absolutely cannot let Miller die in vain. David's words reached Miller's ears, nearly making him choke. So you've already decided I'm going to die? Huh? He clutched his chest, where a faint fist imprint remained, the nightmare's handiwork. Damn, that hit hard. Miller gritted his teeth. If I hadn't stepped back in time, that punch would have been enough to kill me. In the time it took him to mutter that, the nightmare was already in front of him again. Without a word, another punch came flying. Not to be outdone, Miller threw a punch of his own, colliding with the nightmare's fist. Bang! Miller flew backward again. Damn it, that's enough. For the sake of you once being my teacher, I let you have 2 moves. Now I'm getting serious. No more mercy. Miller rubbed his hands together, thinking to himself, damn, why does this guy feel even stronger than last time? Zhang, are you stalling for time? The nightmare said in a low voice. David Evans wants to break through the Granger defense line. It will take at least half an hour. And half an hour is enough for me to kill you countless times. Miller's mouth twitched. Real or fake? Is David that useless? It takes half an hour to beat a Granger family operating at 40% strength? Miller, don't listen to him brag. David shouted from the distance. 25 minutes tops, and we'll be inside. Miller's face twitched. Do you think you're funny? I can't last half an hour. You think I can last 25 minutes? You Evans men all have brain damage. Miller took a deep breath and looked at the nightmare. Teacher Morgan, I've been looking for you all these years. No matter what, you are my teacher. Enough of the act, Zhang. The nightmare interrupted impatiently. I know exactly what kind of trash you are. Miller blinked and continued. But Dr. Marx is dead. I'm practically your only student left. Do you really have the heart to kill me? The response was a ruthless fist from the nightmare. Damn it, you dead old man. Miller turned and ran, dodging constantly. You're really trying to kill me? No sentimental value at all? I worked hard for you back in the day, even if I didn't achieve much. And this is how you treat me? If Old Ding knew you treated me like this, he'd quit the school right along with me. Morgan, if you keep this up, don't blame me for getting nasty. Miller's cursing continued, but didn't shake the nightmare's resolve to kill him in the slightest. Zhang, after all these years, are you still the same as before? Just all talk. The nightmare growled as he chased Miller. At this point, nothing can shake me. Bang, another punch. Only this time, the one flying backward was the nightmare. Miller stood panting, his eyes having turned the same pitch black as the nightmare's, his brows tightly knit. A trace of dark green liquid remained at the corner of his mouth. Zhang, you. The nightmare couldn't understand why Miller suddenly possessed such power. Damn it, you forced me. Miller growled. Years ago, when Old Ding used the gene serum to save me, I survived the agony of 1,000 cuts and suppressed most of the power just to live like a normal person. I didn't want to accept this power, but just in case, Old Ding made me a reagent to release it. Not long ago, when I was digging up gold, I happened to dig this reagent up with it. I wasn't planning on using it, but you forced my hand. Hearing Miller's words, the nightmare clenched his fists involuntarily. Dr. Quentin Marks again. He gritted his teeth. Everything around me is linked to him. If I had known today would happen, I would have died rather than accept him as a student. Miller replied nonchalantly, I don't know what Old Ding thought, but as far as I'm concerned, whether you admit it or not, both of us are your students. With that, Miller switched from defense to offense, charging at the nightmare actively. With his power unleashed, his combat ability was now on par with the nightmare. Teacher, are you afraid of death? Miller laughed as he attacked. I'm not, because whether I'm dead or alive, I have people keeping me company on both sides. Zhang, you. The nightmare's gaze trembled. He could feel that although Miller was strong now, his life force was draining away. Before, Miller had suppressed the power which preserved his life. Now, having obtained great combat power, his life was marching toward its end. I promised that kid Leo I'd teach half a class for him first. Miller forced a smile, acting like he didn't care. Half a class has to be at least 20 minutes, right? If I can't even last that long, I won't have the face to see that little bastard. Miller and the Nightmare fought back and forth, evenly matched for the moment. David Evans noticed the situation and immediately ordered increased firepower. They had to kill their way into the Granger Foundation at top speed. Miller's state couldn't last long. Once Miller croaked, they were all done for. Update in the early morning. Horror. Above NYC, Carol Evans piloted the helicopter, asking Sterling without looking back, "Where to now? What's your next plan?" Sterling dusted off his clothes and said calmly, "To Columbia University." "Columbia University?" Carol frowned. "What for? Why aren't we going to support the attack on the Granger Foundation?" "With just the three of us, going there won't make much difference," Sterling continued. "We need to pick someone up at the university first." Carol thought about it and agreed. The battle at the Granger Foundation wasn't something ordinary people could intervene in. She steered the helicopter toward the university. Meanwhile, the major factions of NYC were watching and waiting, or rather, trembling in fear. First the explosion at Caldwell's Crossing, and now a massive battle erupting at the Granger Foundation. Everyone knew this was likely another battle comparable to the Manhattan incident. NYC was about to change. The bold prepared to scavenge, while the timid just hoped to survive. The rougher the waves, the more expensive the fish. But the big fish in NYC right now were ruthless characters not easily swallowed. Near Caldwell's Crossing, Harrison Shong looked at his remaining men, his face grim. He took out his phone and called Otis Osborne. "Send everyone out. Go to the Granger Foundation, fast." Regardless of Gregory Granger's state, the four great families must unite this time. Otherwise, we all face destruction. On the other end, Otis Osborne replied with equal gravity, "I know. I'm already taking my men to support them." "Good. I'm heading there now, too." Harrison hung up. Then he called Silas Westcott. No answer. Damn it. At a time like this, what is Silas doing? Harrison gritted his teeth, then suddenly felt the car stop. "What's wrong? Why did we stop?" "Patriarch. Ahead." Harrison looked where the driver pointed. A group of people stood in the middle of the road, blocking their path. The New Century. Harrison recognized them immediately. These were the people led by Sterling. "Damn you, Sterling." Harrison growled. Was this all planned? Meanwhile, at the Osborne estate gate, Otis Osborne led his men, preparing to head to the Granger Foundation. "Patriarch, bad news." Hearing this, Otis frowned. "What now? We seem to be surrounded." "What did you say?" Otis's eyes widened. "Who dares surround the Osborne estate?" It's the Caldwell family, and some others we don't recognize." Hearing this, Otis thought about stepping out to take a look, but a guard shouted, "Patriarch, get back. There's a sniper." Bang! The guard shout, and the gunshot rang out simultaneously. A bullet flew from a distant high-rise. Otis's eyes instantly turned pitch black, and he dodged the shot by a hair's breadth. TSK, he dodged that. On the high-rise, Kane sounded dismissive, surprised that his shot hadn't hit the target accurately. "Damn it," Otis cursed, his eyes returning to normal, feeling a wave of lingering fear. If he hadn't dodged on instinct, he would have been reporting to the King of Hell right now. Harrison Shong was blocked by the New Century, while Otis Osborne was blocked by the Caldwell family and Kane's group. Normally, these forces wouldn't be enough to fight Harrison and the others. But now, they were incredibly troublesome. The Osbornes had less than 50% of their manpower left, and Harrison's side was likely in even worse shape after that explosion. Everything was orchestrated to prevent them from supporting the Grangers. As for the Westcott family, they really couldn't spare anyone. But what Sterling hadn't anticipated was that Leo Evans had gone to the Westcott estate and slaughtered the remaining 50% of their forces, along with Silas Westcott himself. Matters had reached a point of no return. Whether it was Harrison Shong or Otis Osborne, they didn't hesitate to go to war with their opponents immediately. For a moment, fires of war sprang up all over NYC. Meanwhile, a black sedan was speeding toward the Granger Foundation. Leo sat in the back, eyes closed tightly, seizing every second to rest. The battle of the Westcott estate had kept him in a full-skill state, and fighting Silas had drained him immensely. "System, given my current physical condition, how long can I maintain the full-skill state?" Based on the host's current condition, approximately 2 minutes. What happens after 2 minutes? It is not recommended for the host to overuse skills. Apex tier skills cause immense damage to the body. Just give it to me straight. How long before I die? If in an overloaded state, after about 10 minutes, the transcendent regenerative abilities will not be able to keep up with the degree of bodily destruction. So, theoretically, as long as it's not over 10 minutes, I won't die, right? Theoretically, yes. Hearing the system's reply, Leo sighed deeply. Other protagonists get systems that make them invincible. Why was his system such trash? Activating Gale Force alone had no side effects. He could keep it on forever, but stacking it with transcendent created power beyond imagination, and a massive burden on the body. If not for the regenerative power of Transcendent, his body would have broken down long ago. Thinking of this, Leo grabbed every second to recover whatever he could. At the Granger Foundation, the battle was a race against time. Professor Miller's once thick black hair was gradually turning white. Jean-Yu, do you really not want to live? The nightmare's mask had been shattered by Miller, revealing Morgan's face. While fighting Miller, he said, "Stop now, and there might still be a way to save your life." Dead old man, now you know how to talk. Miller cursed unceremoniously. I told you not to force me earlier, and you kept punching me. Did you really think I didn't have anything on my sleeve? You know my temper. Did you think I could tolerate that? Now you want me to stop? Stop my ass. Today, I'm going to commit the ultimate act of betrayal against my teacher. With that, Miller threw another punch, his hair whitening further. Morgan was knocked back, black blood trickling from his mouth. He looked up at Miller. Miller was in bad shape too, his body riddled with wounds, blood soaking his clothes. What? Scared to fight? Miller grinned. I'm not afraid of death. Worst case, I go down and find old Ding. Teacher, remember what I used to tell you. Miller charged at Morgan, slowly spitting out a sentence. Mess with anyone, but don't mess with someone who has nothing to lose. Author is working hard on updates. Snap, a soft sound. Professor Miller's full-force punch was caught single-handedly by Morgan. Jean-Yu, I am your teacher. Do you think I don't know you? Morgan looked at Miller expressionlessly and said slowly, Actually, you reached your limit a long time ago, didn't you? That serum might have truly unleashed your power, but while you gain strength, your body is enduring agony. If I'm guessing correctly, there isn't a single intact organ left inside you right now, is there? Finished speaking, Morgan kicked Miller flying. Puffed. Miller could no longer suppress it and spat out a mouthful of black blood. Morgan looked at Miller's state and continued. The gene serum DR. Mark's originally developed had side effects that were too great. If it were the current him, perhaps he could save you, but he is dead. Jean-Yu, you are beyond saving. Morgan looked back. David Evans and his team still hadn't broken through. Once I finish you, it's their turn. He walked toward Miller step by step. Seeing this, Miller hurriedly tried to stand up, but his body shuddered violently, and he spat blood again. Cough, cough. Damn, seriously? Let me hold on a bit longer. Miller gritted his teeth and stood. Watching Morgan approach step by step, his consciousness began to blur, and an overwhelming exhaustion washed over him, making him want to close his eyes. Have I lasted 10 minutes? Doesn't feel like it. His life force was draining faster than he imagined, and he had to endure immense pain every second. Am I going to die? The question suddenly popped into Miller's head. Finally dying? I should have died a long time ago, right? Is my life flashing before my eyes? Miller, in a trance, tried to recall his life, but there didn't seem to be much worth remembering. The first half of his life was spent as a student, moonlighting as a killer. Honestly, Miller had grown tired of the assassin life. He knew he wouldn't have a good ending. Sure enough, he died eventually. He thought he was free, but then he was saved. Using the name, The Ghost, Miller hid at Ethelberg University. He found that life as a professor wasn't bad. Teaching classes when he had to, spending nights at internet cafes, or playing poker when he didn't. When he ran out of money, he'd figure something out, get a title promotion, raise his salary. In those years in Ethelberg, these hands played cards, raised wine glasses, cheated, smoked. While these might be vices, it didn't matter. What mattered was that these hands were no longer stained with blood. He came out of retirement again, in Viridian, to clean up a mess for Leo. After that, things spiraled out of control. He had told Sterling in Viridian that he wanted to be an outsider watching the show. Sterling said, "That's not up to you." Miller had to admit, Sterling was usually right. If Miller had any regrets right now, it was probably that he hadn't bought a pack of cigarettes before coming here. Wanting a smoke before dying is asking too much. Miller glanced at Morgan, then at David Evans in the distance. Damn, let's struggle a bit more. Mustering strength from unknown reserves, he stood straight again. Seeing this, Morgan frowned, then shook his head with a sigh. Jean-Yu, why do you refuse to give up? Miller grinned. Teacher, didn't you accept me as a student back then precisely because of this stubborn temper? He gestured toward David Evans with his head. They aren't finished over there. If I die now, won't it all be for nothing? I haven't done many good deeds in this long life. Consider this me building up some good karma. Even if I have to die, I hope my death has more meaning than my life. Hearing this, Morgan gritted his teeth. Then I will grant your wish. Morgan rushed at Miller. However, just then, an engine roared. A black car accelerated into the battlefield. Without pausing, it drove straight at Morgan. Bang! With a dull thud, Morgan was sent flying. The black car stopped in front of Miller. The door opened, and Leo stepped out slowly. He looked at Miller's condition without a word, took a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, and tossed it to him. Took a detour to buy you smokes. Cost me some time. Miller caught the cigarettes, put one in his mouth, lit it with a lighter, and took a satisfying drag. Then he sat on the ground and looked at Leo. Go easy on him. He's my teacher after all. Just leave the body intact. Leo nodded. I'll give you that face. He stepped forward, walking slowly toward Morgan. Miller watched Leo's back, smoking, the corners of his mouth lifting. D, are you kidding? Who doesn't have a student of their own? Betraying my teacher and ancestors. I can talk about it, but I can't actually do it. Miller narrowed his eyes and murmured. This kid is different. He's perfect for the job. Technically speaking, Morgan was Leo's grand teacher. Fuck, the kid is finally here. David Evans saw Leo and let out a huge sigh of relief. Then he whipped around and shouted, push harder. We're almost in. Taking out all 4 families in one go today. Mission accomplished. Charge in and fuck him up. Fighting up. While morale soared on this side, the Granger Foundation forces were suffering. They couldn't hold on much longer. The key issue was that until now, neither Gareth Granger nor Gregory Granger had shown their faces. Although David shouted aggressively, he felt an unease in his heart. But regardless, having reached this point, they could only press forward. On the other side, Morgan picked himself up after being hit by Marco's car. Seeing Leo's face, his pupils constricted violently. Impossible. Aren't you dead? What? Never seen someone come back from the dead. Leo scoffed. I don't care whose teacher you are. You got away last time, but you won't escape this time. Back from the dead? Back from the dead. Morgan suddenly shouted, losing his composure. Is it true? Did you really come back from the dead? How did you do it? Tell me. Leo raised an eyebrow. What? You want to learn? I can teach you. You kill yourself first, and then I'll save you. How about it? Morgan stared intensely at Leo, enunciating each word. Is what you're saying true? Leo was startled. He actually believes it? This old man isn't actually going to kill himself, is he? It's true. Go ahead, kill yourself. But Morgan shook his head. I cannot die, but I can kill you and see exactly how you came back from the dead. Kill me. Golden starlight began to flicker in Leo's eyes. When did you get strong enough for that? I'm different from the last time you saw me. Morgan shook his head. You simply don't understand how this power grows over time. Whoosh. Before Morgan could finish, Leo was instantly in front of him. So fast. Morgan's pupil shrank. Before he could react, Leo slammed a fist into his chest. Bang. Ugh. Morgan let out a cry of pain, a look of disbelief on his face. Why is his punch so heavy? It's completely different from last time. The Leo from before definitely didn't have this kind of strength. Leo didn't give Morgan any time to recover. Seizing the opening ruthlessly, every move was lethal. Morgan was forced into passive defense, sometimes unable to block Leo's attacks at all. Miller, smoking his cigarette, watched in awe. It's a total stomp. When did this kid get so fierce? No, wait. Miller frowned, quickly spotting the issue. It's not that Leo got stronger. It's that Morgan got weaker. What the hell is going on? At that moment, Morgan, who was getting beaten continuously, realized the problem too. Although Leo's attacks looked lethal, many were feints. The actual strikes landed in strange places. Suddenly, Morgan felt warmth in his nose. He touched it. Is this a nosebleed? Morgan froze. Why was he suddenly bleeding? I realized it when I fought Silas Westcott. Leo suddenly spoke. For people like you, the source of your power is blood, right? Once you lose too much blood, your power gradually weakens. Although your blood-producing ability has evolved beyond normal humans, the speed of blood loss in high-intensity combat is definitely greater than your production speed. Leo smirked faintly. It just so happens I know a little medicine. So, I gave you a relaxing muscles and activating blood combo treatment. Your body is tough, I admit. Without using full strength on certain acupoints, I couldn't really hit the mark. You should be feeling your blood churning right about now, yeah. Blood flowed continuously from Morgan's nose, and wounds all over his body that had stopped bleeding suddenly began to gush again. Miller, hearing Leo's words, was dumbfounded. That actually works? Even more confused was Morgan. How is this possible? He frantically wiped the blood from his body, feeling his strength draining away, just as Leo had said. Most importantly, Morgan had no idea such a weakness existed. Firstly, whenever he traded with the three families, he gave only a small amount of blood, which didn't matter. Secondly, neither he nor the patriarchs of the three families had ever fought head-on or even bled much, so they simply didn't know that losing blood meant losing power. Seeing this, Miller suddenly felt the irony. Morgan, his teacher, the man who used to be most meticulous in research, never missing a detail, had made such a ridiculous error. If Morgan had spent just a little more effort researching his own body, he wouldn't have been caught off guard by Leo like this. "Teacher, looks like it's over." "Cough, cough," Miller murmured, then coughed violently. His vision blurred, and an overwhelming drowsiness surged up, making him want to close his eyes. "Damn, guess I'm about done too." Panting heavily, Miller leaned against a wall and slowly closed his eyes. On the other side, David Evans had reached the final step. Boom! With an explosion, the defense line of the Granger Foundation was breached. "Quick, don't get bogged down in fighting. Find Gregory Granger immediately," David shouted, rushing inside. Morgan glanced over, wanting to stop them, but Leo blocked his path, preventing him from taking a single step. Morgan sighed deeply, suddenly giving up the struggle. "I won't fight anymore. Continuing is just seeking death." Seeing this, Leo relaxed too. He didn't want to keep fighting either. Although he could win, he didn't want to waste a shred of stamina right now. Saving a little was better than nothing. "Did you really come back from the dead?" Morgan looked at Leo, his eyes pleading. "Tell me. I just want to know the answer to this question. It's really important to me." Leo was silent for a moment, then slowly said, "It's fake. There's no such thing as coming back from the dead in this world. Dead is dead." He had come back, yes, but he relied on a system. Did everyone have a system? Impossible. A person only has one life. If resurrection really existed, imagine how chaotic the world would be. Noro Sedexchen. Hearing this, Morgan looked as if he had lost his soul. How can there be none? There shouldn't be none. If resurrection is impossible, what about Luna? What about all my persistence over the years, everything I did for Gregory Granger? What was it all for? Leo's words were like a cruel reality ruthlessly displayed before Morgan. It became the final straw that broke the camel's back. Leo watched him silently and said, "I don't know who Luna is to you, but I advise you to give up. Leaving aside whether resurrection works, even if she came back, can you guarantee she would still be the same person?" "What do you know?" Morgan suddenly roared. "Without Luna, my life has no meaning. If Luna cannot be brought back, then everything I have done so far has been in vain. Now, my last hope is Gregory Granger's blood. Once Gregory succeeds, he will become a higher existence, and his blood will surely help me revive Luna." Leo looked at Morgan and felt the man had become paranoid. No wonder he worked for Gregory. The ultimate goal was this. "Although I don't know who Luna is, resurrection isn't that simple," Leo said flatly. "Anyway, for me, living once in this rotten world is enough. Hell is empty and all the devils are here. If I finally died and someone revived me back into this crappy world, I would definitely say to that person, 'Are you freaking bored or something?'" Leo's words were undoubtedly a thorn driven into Morgan's heart. "What do you know? Luna was my daughter. She was so kind. She shouldn't have died." Morgan murmured, despondent. "If the one who died back then was me, how good would that have been?" Leo said no more to Morgan in this state. He had more important things to do, and he honestly didn't know what to say about Morgan's situation. Was it wrong for a man to want to save his dead daughter? Leo didn't know, but he felt it wasn't a question of right or wrong. It just felt selfish. Just like when a person is born, people don't know their future, yet offer congratulations. And when a person leaves, people don't know what the afterlife holds, yet express pity. It's like a terminally ill patient lying in bed, enduring pain every second. They want to die, but they don't even have the right to choose death, because they can't even communicate that wish. They can only watch helplessly as family members by their side tell them to hang on, to live. In Leo's view, Morgan's situation was no different. He was bent on reviving his daughter, but his daughter couldn't express any will. Did she want to die or revive? Morgan didn't know. He just obsessively wanted her back. To Leo, that was selfishness. The most important lesson in ethics class this university professor hadn't learned: respecting the will of others, even the dead. "Old man, you still alive?" Leo walked over to Professor Miller, looking at the unconscious man, and frowned. Checking carefully, he found Miller's life force was nearly exhausted. It was the end of the road. Cough, cough. "Is it handled?" As if experiencing terminal lucidity, Miller slowly opened his eyes and looked at Leo. "It's just started. Leo said softly. You make it sound like the series finale. Well, it's the finale for me anyway, Miller said weakly. Listen, I have instructions for you. What is it? The location of your hidden gold. Don't make me curse at you at a time like this. Miller grumpily said. Listen, after I die, bury me at Columbia University with Old Ding. Wait, Old Ding doesn't have a grave at the uni. Anyway, just bury me at the university. The gold is in your room at the clinic. Consider it your payment. As he spoke, Miller closed his eyes. His face was incredibly aged, and the head full of white hair was hard for Leo to accept. As if using the last of his strength, Miller spat out one final sentence. All right, that's all the instructions. You can get lost now. Let me rest in peace. A few seconds after his voice faded, Miller stopped breathing completely. Leo gently held Miller's body, suddenly feeling a sting in his nose. At your age, still getting mixed up in everything. Leo cursed softly. You could have done nothing. You could have stayed at the school, gotten your tenure, got a raise. I could have brought Ava to visit you during the holidays. Leo thought he could face Miller's death calmly. But only now did he understand what it felt like when someone close suddenly left. Perhaps the original Miller really wanted to stay away from conflict and live a good life. But seeing Dr. Mark's die in Westlake changed his mind. Forget it. It's pointless. Even Old Ding died. What's the point of living in this world? Having been a killer, accustomed to a life of blood and wind, can one really just put it down? Right, there was Leo. Following this kid was somewhat interesting. He could find some amusement. Just like that, Miller followed Leo all the way from Westlake to Viridian, then to NYC. He didn't know why he followed Leo. Logically, he had repaid David Evans' debt and had no need to clean up Leo's messes. Until a few hours ago, Miller might have finally understood why he kept following Leo. Because Leo was surrounded by danger, and Miller happened to need danger. I wanted to die for a long time. But Miller didn't want to die randomly. As he said before, I hope my death has more value than my life. Leo stood up, placed Miller's body in the car, and instructed Marco to guard it. Then, looking at Morgan not far away, he said nothing more and strode toward the Granger Foundation. Miller used his life to buy him these 10+ minutes. No matter what, Leo would not let those minutes be in vain. Gregory Granger, I don't care if you're awake or asleep. Today, you are reporting to the King of Hell. Meanwhile, at Columbia University, Carol Evans landed the helicopter on the roof. Sterling and Adrian jumped down. Tisk really nostalgic. Sterling looked at the scenery of Columbia University with some emotion. Adrian glanced at him, exasperated. What are you nostalgic about? You didn't graduate from here. Sterling looked at him with amusement. I said it for you. Adrian rolled his eyes, took a mask from his pocket, and covered his face. What's that for? Afraid of being recognized by acquaintances, especially those old geezers in the computer science building. If they knew I came back, they'd find me first thing and curse me to death. Hearing Adrian's words, Sterling laughed. Who told you to be so young and reckless back then? The World Top Hacker competition, carrying the honor of the entire school, the favorite to win the world championship, and suddenly you quit without a word, then dropped out and vanished. If I were your teacher, I'd put out a global warrant for you too. Adrian sighed deeply. Can we stop bringing up old crap? And I suspect you did this on purpose. You could have landed anywhere, but you had to pick this building. Adrian was fed up. The building beneath their feet was the School of Computer Science. Sterling definitely did it on purpose. No, it's just closer this way. Sterling walked over and opened a roof access door to enter the building. Adrian shouldered his laptop bag, pulled up his hood to cover himself completely, and followed Sterling. As they walked, Adrian suddenly stopped, his gaze resting on a wall. There were several photos, the first being a picture of a girl. Below was a caption. Zara Collins, 2024 Computer Science School Competition, 1st place. World Top Hacker Competition, 17th place. Looking at the rows of honors and awards, Adrian chuckled lightly. Not bad. Taking a day off for New Year's. Sterling led Adrian through the familiar paths of Columbia University. While battles raged everywhere outside, the university was surprisingly tranquil. Who is the current president of Columbia? Adrian asked suddenly. Joyce Zhu, Sterling answered softly. She took office as the president of Columbia University 2 years ago. That matriarch of extinction. Adrian frowned. I remember rumors back then. Didn't she have something with Dr. Marks? Yeah, she and Dr. Marks were close back then. But ever since Dr. Marks started researching the gene serum, they became strangers, Sterling sighed. It wasn't just President Joyce. At the time, everyone thought the gene serum was a forbidden project, let alone that the person researching it was Dr. Marks. But Marks was too obsessed with the panacea. Decades of accumulated connections collapsed in an instant. Not a single person was willing to stand by him. No help, no resources, yet he persisted on his path. You could say he was truly a stubborn man. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Without manpower, resources, or funding, how did Dr. Marks develop the gene serum? Did someone help him back then? Sterling paused, falling silent. After a long while, he spoke slowly. There are many stubborn people in this world, but one as frankly pitiful as Dr. Marks is enough. All right, we're here. Sterling stopped in front of door. This is Dr. Marks' old office. Miller asked me to preserve it for him. Sterling knocked gently. Knock, knock, knock. Enter. Sterling pushed the door open. The elegant room layout was completely different from a laboratory full of scientific instruments. A white-haired woman stood by the window, her back to them, gazing intently at the scenery outside. In a chair nearby, Henry Yin was looking through a notebook, his expression serious. Sterling glanced at Henry, then spoke to Joyce Jusback. Long time no see, President Joyce. Joyce slowly turned around, looking at Sterling indifferently. I didn't want to see you. Adrian watched this, puzzled. Why did it feel like President Joyce had some hostility towards Sterling? Still holding a grudge about back then? Sterling sighed. You know, whether I helped him or not, he wouldn't have turned back. But if it weren't for you, his research would never have reached that stage. Joyce's voice rose. In the end, for the birth of the gene serum, you, Sterling, are the main culprit. Would it really not have? Sterling looked calm. You know better than I do how much of a genius Dr. Marks was. Could that bit of resource monopoly really limit his brilliant mind? Joyce, have you ever thought, if you all had supported him back then, is it possible the result would have been different? Sterling stared sharply at Joyce, enunciating clearly. Dr. Marks was not wrong, and I too am not wrong. Joyce's eyes filled with anger. I will never understand people like you. At that moment, Henry Yin suddenly closed the notebook and stood up, looking at Joyce. President Joyce, thank you for giving me the teacher's notebook. The contents recorded inside are very important to me. Henry bowed deeply to her. However, Joyce kept her cold expression. That notebook has always been here. I haven't looked at its contents myself. Since you were his student, it is only right to give it to you. Besides, taking you in was something Miller begged me to do, and I only agreed for the sake of old times. From now on, you are part of Columbia University. You can have this office. I only hope you don't go down the crooked path Dr. Marks did. No. Henry shook his head and said, President Joyce, I'm very grateful you gave me the teacher's notebook, but regarding the offer to join Columbia University, please allow me to refuse. What did you say? Joyce's face instantly darkened. Do you know that this opportunity is something Miller begged for? I only agreed because of our history. I know. After reading the teacher's notebook, I understand he had a very good relationship with you and Uncle Miller. But please understand, the philosophy of Columbia University conflicts with mine. Over time, the problems would only grow. Furthermore, I met the teacher at Westlake University. I'm a part of Westlake, and I prefer staying there. Hearing Henry's words, Joyce's face was filled with incomprehension. You mean to say Westlake University is better than Columbia? Do you know that Columbia is the ceiling of educational resources in the country? Countless people break their heads, try to squeeze in. The best isn't necessarily the most suitable, Henry said firmly. Joyce frowned. In that moment, she saw the shadow of Dr. Marks and Henry Yin. Just as arrogant, just as stubborn. Must you blindly chase that man's footsteps? Joyce asked slowly. No, Henry shook his head. These are my own true thoughts. Columbia is indeed wonderful, a utopia all scholars aspire to. But it is also a place where one can easily lose oneself. Henry held up the notebook, filled with Dr. Marks' handwriting. Teacher wrote a passage at the end of this notebook. He said, not everyone in the world can understand our true hearts, nor are they that interested in us researchers. So, however hard we live, however dedicated we are, there's no need to struggle to explain it to everyone. We just need to keep doing what we've been doing, living our lives as always, walking silently no matter what others say. But living silently absolutely does not mean disappearing, because truly meaningful things will never disappear. Henry stared intently at Joyce. Teacher passed this spirit on to me. As his only student, no matter what, I cannot fail his expectations. Also, President Joyce, do you know what teacher called this spirit? Joyce paused, involuntarily asking, called it what? Henry smiled, scenes of spending time with Dr. Marks at Westlake University floating in his mind. He spoke slowly. Teacher, he called all of this Holmunsi. Happy New Year, everyone. I'll keep writing. Holmunsi. Joyce murmured the word, her eyes full of incomprehension. Are you kidding me? For something like that? All right, no more time to chat. Sterling suddenly interrupted them, looking at Henry. Is a notebook helpful to you? Yes, it records many things teacher didn't have time to tell me. It gives me a lot of ideas. Meaning, you need time? Henry nodded. Sterling looked worried. Time was exactly what they lacked right now. Let's go talk on the way. Sterling looked at Joyce. We're taking Henry. Farewell. Joyce said nothing, just quietly watching them leave. After Sterling and the others left, Joyce looked around the office that once belonged to Dr. Marks, her eyes complex. Quentin Marks, only today do I realize I never understood you. Inside the Granger Foundation, corpses were strewn everywhere. David Evans and the others searched everywhere for traces of Gregory Granger, not letting go of any place a person could hide. Strange. Can this Gregory turn invisible? Can't find him anywhere, not even in the basement. Look carefully, there must be a secret passage or mechanism we don't know about. Leo was also searching. Where could a living person hide? And his son, Gareth Granger, hadn't shown up. Had they transferred ahead of time? Something's weird here, suddenly someone shouted. Everyone rushed over. Leo ran up to see a man standing under an old locust tree, pointing at the soil. The dirt here looks different, like it's been dug up frequently. David Evans looked grave. Several people immediately grabbed tools and started digging. As they went deeper, Leo had a vague sense of foreboding. Before long, they hit something. A hand. A withered, bloodless hand. A dead body. Jensen said hurriedly, "Dig gently, don't damage it." They moved carefully, and soon, a complete corpse was excavated from the deep pit. They lifted the body out and placed it in front of everyone. David Evans and Director Jensen looked at the corpse's face and swallowed hard. Dark face. Am I seeing this right? How is this possible? Leo frowned and asked, "You guys know him? Who is he?" David Evans' eyes were grim as he enunciated, "That face is unmistakable. He is the one we've been looking for. Gregory Granger." What? Leo was astonished, then reacted quickly, stepping forward to assess the state of Gregory's body. Soon, Leo's heart sank. Seeing Leo's ugly expression, David asked quickly, "What's wrong?" "Dad, if this body really is Gregory Granger," Leo said in a low voice, "then he's been dead for 2 weeks." Hearing this, everyone froze. Gregory Granger died 2 weeks ago. Then what had they been fighting? No, impossible. A raspy voice rang out. Everyone looked back to see the wounded Morgan standing nearby, looking at Gregory's corpse in disbelief. The crowd immediately went on alert. If Morgan attacked now, no one but Leo could stop him. However, Morgan didn't seem inclined to fight. Instead, he stared fixedly at Leo, asking, "Are you sure he died 2 weeks ago?" Leo nodded. With his medical skills, he couldn't be wrong about this. Impossible. This is impossible. Morgan was near despair. His last hope for reviving Luna was Gregory. And now, Gregory was dead? "Morgan, let me ask you," Leo said coldly. "When was the last time you saw Gregory Granger?" "A month ago. After that, you never saw him again?" "No." Morgan realized something was wrong now, too. After that, he fell into a deep sleep. It was his son, Gareth Granger, who contacted me. Gareth Granger? David Evans spotted the anomaly. "Where's Gareth now?" "I don't know that either." Morgan shook his head. "He just told me to try to stall you until Gregory woke up." Hearing this, Leo and the other two exchanged glances, thinking bad news. "We were tricked." Jensen gritted his teeth. "If that's the case, then Gareth." "I'm afraid so," David said darkly. "I didn't expect him to fool everyone. He even fooled Sterling." "What do you mean?" Morgan asked, looking at the three men. "Morgan, you were tricked too." Leo clenched his fists, speaking word by word. From beginning to end, the one who needed time to evolve was never Gregory Granger. It was his son, Gareth Granger. Leo's words thundered in Morgan's ears. How is that possible? Why isn't it possible? Leo pointed at Gregory's corpse. "You should know yourself that the final step of evolution requires the blood of a direct relative. And now, Gregory's blood has been drained dry. Who do you think it was used on?" Realization dawned on everyone, right? Everyone thought Gregory would use his son Gareth's blood to achieve his goal. But would Gareth really be willing to die? If he wasn't willing, what would he do? Then Gareth. "Where is he now?" someone asked. No one answered. Finding Gareth in the entirety of NYC now was like fishing a needle from the ocean. At Columbia University, Sterling led Adrian and Henry back to the roof, preparing to take the helicopter to the Granger Foundation. Pushing open the roof door, Sterling suddenly froze, his eyes widening. Not far away, A young man in black stood next to the helicopter, smiling and waving at them. Gareth Granger, why are you here? Sterling quickly looked into the helicopter. Carol was nowhere to be seen. Where's Carol Evans? Gareth chuckled. Want her live? Then be obedient. Sterling's face instantly darkened. Seeing Gareth, his brain spun wildly, instantly understanding the situation. You use Gregory as a smokescreen? As expected of Sterling, figured it out so fast? Gareth clapped his hands in praise, his face full of mockery. But it's already too late. Update in the early morning. On the rooftop, Gareth Granger smiled, seeming to mock Sterling for being deceived. You all thought my father fell into a slumber to complete his transformation. But actually, it was the opposite. Gareth's eyes suddenly turned vicious. That old relic wanted me to sacrifice myself, to use my blood to complete him. Why? Just because I'm his son, I should die for him? I wasn't willing. So I killed him and used his own plan to let myself evolve smoothly. Gareth looked at his hand with a satisfied expression. The slumber took much less time than I thought. I woke up days ago, but I did nothing. Instead, I played along and watched a good show. I have to say, the drama you all put on was simply spectacular. Gareth laughed maniacally. It was like watching a bunch of ignorant ants fighting. Sterling, can you understand that feeling? You pride yourself on being smarter than everyone, viewing everyone as chess pieces. Did you ever think one day you would be played as a pawn? Looking at the triumphant Gareth, Sterling's expression was ugly. Adrian and Henry frowned. The situation had developed completely beyond their expectations. They looked at Sterling, but in this situation, what could he do? They were checkmated. Gareth, what do you want? Sterling asked darkly. You've said so much and haven't killed us. Isn't just to gloat, is it? Kill you? Gareth sneered. The current me. Even the 4 great families are nothing before me. Sterling, I won't waste words with you. Gareth stared at Sterling. I want the North Point Horde. Sterling's pupils constricted. How do you know about that? You don't need to know that. You just need to give me the Horde. And if I don't, then I'll kill everyone at Columbia University. Oh, Sterling chuckled lightly. What does killing people at Columbia have to do with me? Gareth's face stiffened. Then he continued. Then I'll kill the 2 behind you first. Adrian and Henry tensed. Sterling reached out to block them, sighing softly. I'm afraid of you, all right? But you should know, the Horde is in North Point. This is NYC. How do I give it to you? Gareth replied mockingly. Isn't that simple? There's a helicopter right here. Flying to North Point is just a matter of hours, isn't it? Sterling glanced at the helicopter and said calmly, but can you fly it? None of the 3 of us know how to fly a helicopter. Only Carol does. Gareth said expressionlessly. So I didn't kill her. I just knocked her out. He opened the helicopter door. Carol was indeed lying there. Seeing she was okay, Sterling sighed in relief. We still have to wait for her to wake up before we can move. Hearing this, Gareth walked up without a word and kicked Carol hard in the ribs. Thud, ugh. Immense pain woke Carol with a frown. Ms. Evans, I'll need to trouble you to take us to North Point. Gareth looked down at Carol. I advise you not to resist, or more people will die. Carol looked at Gareth, then at Sterling not far away. Suddenly, her pupils trembled. She saw Sterling, behind Gareth's back, raising an eyebrow at her and smiling. Carol knew Sterling well. She had seen that smile many times. Once Sterling smiled like that, there was only one explanation. Everything is under control. Carol couldn't quite believe it. Even at this stage, was this accident, Gareth Granger, within Sterling's plan? Sterling, what exactly are you trying to do? Carol couldn't help but wonder, but she didn't ask. Instead, glancing at Gareth, she silently walked to the pilot's seat. Sterling, can we go now? Gareth turned back to look at Sterling. Sterling's face no longer held the smile from before. He said darkly, yes, but the 2 people behind me can't come. Gareth looked at Adrian and Henry. After a moment of silence, he nodded slowly. He only wanted the North Point Horde. Only Sterling knew the location and the key. So, he only needed to take Sterling. Seeing Gareth agree, Sterling signaled Adrian with his eyes. Adrian started to say something, but upon seeing Sterling's look, he shut his mouth. Henry also wanted to speak, but was pulled back by Adrian. Let's go. Sterling stepped onto the helicopter, looking back at Adrian and mouthing something silently. Adrian understood the lip reading and nodded imperceptibly. Horror. Carol piloted the helicopter, taking Gareth and Sterling toward North Point. After they left, Adrian immediately dragged Henry toward the stairs. We have to hurry, Adrian said without looking back. What do you mean? Henry asked, confused. I can't read lips. What did Sterling just tell you? He said to go find Leo Evans and take him to North Point to find Julian Reed. Adrian paused, then continued. I don't know why he wants to do that, but since it's his arrangement, we'll do it. After all, he is sterling. Hearing this, Henry took a deep breath and silently ran with Adrian, preparing to find Leo. Meanwhile, North Point, East Side Ridge. In a large courtyard house, a handsome young man sat leisurely on a stone stool. In front of him was a stone go board covered with black and white stones. Opposite him, the seat was empty. No one was playing against him. Contrary to the tranquility here, not far away, a bald brute was shirtless, playing poker loudly with 3 others. Ha ha! Silas, you're gonna lose your pants today. Cut the crap. The outcome is undecided. I don't believe your luck can stay this good. Fine, for that sentence alone, I'm beating you into submission today. As the 3 spoke, they glanced at Julian playing Go Alone and said, Rule number 1. If you can't win, you're not allowed to call Julian. If he steps in, the game is over. They couldn't forget the first time they played cards with Julian Reed. They were beaten until they questioned life itself. Before that, they thought card games relied mostly on luck. After that, they learned luck was bullshit. He played psychological warfare. If their eyes hesitated for a second looking at their cards, that monster Julian could immediately deduce their entire hand and strategy. Who the hell could beat that? Hearing this, Master Silas was speechless. Honestly, he did plan on calling for backup if he couldn't win. But since they put it that way, how could he back down? Fine. No Julian. I'll take you on till the end, you bastards. Not far away. Hearing this, Julian shook his head with a smile. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. He picked it up. An unknown number. The content was just a few words. On the way,